Welcome to the fourth ever episode of the Videostore Junkies podcast, the podcast about movies and the experience of watching them. It's another Friday night in the video store, and we're looking for a movie to bring to Zach's uncle's cabin. And what is better than a slasher when you're out in the middle of nowhere? Let's see if these guys have found anything that really captures their attention.
Everybody ready? The show on the road!
Doesn't even show up on the GPS. It's unworthy of global positioning.
That's the whole point. Get off the grid, right?
Hello? I'm thinking this thing doesn't take credit cards.
Sign says closed.
We're looking for, what's it called?
Tillerman Road.
Not to get you there, getting back. That's your concern.
Oh, this is awesome.
Whoa. No way.
Yes, tonight we are covering The Cabin in the Woods, a film with a brilliant take on the horror genre. We are notoriously bad at this, so I'm going to throw you guys some intros.
All right.
Are you ready? All right. I am going to start with someone who has had a very profound impact on my movie watching career. That would be Paul Cardullo.
Oh crap! I thought it was going to be Bill.
Me too.
Hey, this is Paul. So I guess we need to start with what monsters, I guess, is that, or do we jump into something else?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have asked you. Paul, I'm the worst at this. I'm so sorry. Paul, what monster would you most like to face, and which monster would you least like to face? And we are taking this from the monsters on the board.
Gee, it's a toss-up in terms of most want to face. One would be Reptilius, because that sounds like he could be a kaiju, which means I have a chance of running away from him. So it was either that or sexy witches, but I think we'll go with Reptilius. And then least want to face, goodness, I think the dismemberment goblins, because that just sounds too painful. So, so my relationship with this film is, I remember when it was coming out, and just psyched to see it, and I went and saw it with my oldest, who was, goodness, what year was this? Was this 2012?
2012. No.
2012.
No, 2011.
Yeah, it's 2012.
Yeah, so sorry.
Okay, so he was like
The
50.
release date is 2011.
It was released at a film festival in 2011, but it was only released wide in the US in 2012.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my son was 16 at the time, and I remember just watching this and absolutely loving it. So that was the long and short my relationship with it. And to be honest, I don't think I've actually watched it since then. I had the Blu-ray, but I'm not sure if I ever popped it in. So until just the other night. So and loved it just as much as when I saw it before.
Great. All right. So we are going to get to this next guy here. You might think of yourselves as loyal friends, but this guy, he will cancel his plans at Applebee's if he finds you dead in the shower. And that would be Bill Mulligan.
Hey, I will. So let's see. I'm gonna say favorite. If I had to pick one of these, it would be Sexy Witches, because I know that's going to end horribly, but at least for a few seconds, I would think that actually I was in luck. It's got the word sexy in front of it, so that's got to be good. And I don't know, although I was thinking about Kevin just because I want to know what the hell he is, but that probably is a, curiosity killed the cat. As far as the least, you got to go with Angry Molesting Tree. I mean, if it was just a molesting tree, maybe we could work something out, but this is an angry molesting tree. There's no reasoning with him. So yeah, that would be the least one. And my relationship with this film is, I saw it, I think the day it came out. I ran out to see this because it's hard to explain to the kids these days, but there was a time when you were allowed to love Joss Whedon, and you looked forward to what he was going to come out with, and this looked great, and it's one of those movies that kind of broke my heart because I saw it, I loved every minute of it, and then I very quickly found out that mine was maybe not a minority opinion, but the movie-going public didn't seem to respond to it the same way I did. So sometimes things just work out that way.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So this next guy we have here is probably an American citizen, the only American citizen banned from the country of Serbia, and probably the only person I know that could convince an ex to come over to their house with the intention of actually filming a horror film. That would be Alan Watkins.
You know I'm welcome in Serbia anytime. I love their stuff. Anyway, so my the monster that I would want to face here, and keep in mind I just saw this today, so I remember a lot of these guys. I would face the twins. I think I could. I mean, I'm obviously probably not, but I think I could take them based on what I saw.
Or maybe they just need a dad.
Maybe, you never know. Now the one that I would not want to face, well, I'm not going to be able to pick the one that I actually don't want to face. I think it might have been there was something that was flying really fast, and you had absolutely no shot of getting out of the way of it. And I don't even know what that was, but the one that I
bat
saw,
creature thing.
Well, I don't think it was the dragon bat. That was smaller. It was something
Hmm.
else, but it might have been sugar plum fairy. Anyway, the snake. There's the giant snake was like way too fast, and he killed people immediately. So yeah, I'd take that angry molesting tree any day over the giant snake.
Yeah, I think the giant snake was Reptilicus. So Paul, you're
Oops.
yeah.
No.
so much for
There
running
is
away.
a giant snake. There is a
Yeah.
giant snake on the list.
Oh, you're right,
So I don't
you're
know what
right.
Reptilius was.
There's a
Oh.
scene where
Hmm.
I'll just show you a screenshot where you can see his leg.
Okay.
Oh, is that the one when he's on the monitor?
Yes. And
Yeah.
there's a
Okay.
girl and he like
Oh.
sneaks up on her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe that was a good plan, Paul. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, my relationship to the movie.
I was just going to ask, yeah.
I remember wanting to see this when it came out, and I didn't. So I waited until it, came out on video and watched it. And I want to say I want to say today was my third time watching it because I watched it like alone because nobody thought it'd be any good, and then I was like, hey, this movie is really good. You should watch this. It's not like other horror movies. And so I watched it again with some other people, and then again I watched it between last night and today again.
So I've saved the best for last, and I don't know where we would be without this guy. He is the wind beneath our wings, and I have so much more respect for him after putting all of this together. And he's the number one guy in this group. It's Zachary Edgerton.
When you said you saved the best for last, I assumed you'd forgotten about me and you were just going yourself. So yeah, I waited 2 years to watch this movie because back in 2010, when it was originally going to be released, like Bill mentioned, being a Joss Whedon fan was acceptable, and that was a time. I think that was around the time that Dollhouse came out, which I loved. I was a huge fan of Firefly, so I heard that he was doing a horror movie. I was super excited. I just remember it having a lot of like buzz on the internet, and then it got, as I'm sure we'll talk about, it got delayed for about 2 years, and I was very sad. But I do remember watching it. I actually watched it the night before it came out because at the time I had worked at a theater for a very, very long time, and I knew a guy who ran a theater that I used to work with, so he would always let me come and watch movies like right before they came out. So yeah, it's one of those movies I waited a long time for, but I think it was worth the wait. And in terms of, I think, I was going back and forth on this because it feels like there are a lot of monsters in this movie that are very situational, right? Because they have the snowman on that list, and it seems like you'd be okay, you'd be pretty safe from him in certain situations. I don't know. I'm gonna have to say it's tough. I mean, the merman is obviously scary if you're in the lake, but when he's on land, he's not very threatening. Honestly, I'm probably going to have to say the unicorn, though, because I feel like you could probably outmaneuver the unicorn when you were in the cabin itself. I don't know. I mean, he's kind of got one trick, right?
True. Well,
Yeah.
Unless he's like magical or something, in which case I guess all bets are off.
He's
They
a
can pick.
unicorn. Of course, he's magical. Yeah.
Literally
He is
a one-trick
magical.
pony.
Oh.
You're out of here.
And
See, those are the kind of dad
I'll be your
jokes that
own.
would actually endear the twins to you.
yeah, there you go. I think the one I would least like to face is probably Kevin, just because who knows what that is. I actually know because I looked it up, but apparently there's a novelization that he appears in. But yeah, I think Kevin's probably the scariest one out of all these.
Okay, so Spill, what was Kevin?
Well, according to the Cabin in the Woods fan wiki, he's not seen during the film. In the novelization, Kevin is described as a quiet, normal-looking person with a small smile on his face who calmly walks through the post-purge chaos until he comes across an injured guard. He then proceeds to exsanguinate him in a second. When Dana finds the guard, he appears untarnished, but Dana had never seen anyone more dead. Due to his unremarkable appearance, any normal-looking human seen in the purge could be Kevin. Which is actually kind of scary because if you don't know you're in a cabin in the woods situation and you summon him and he just shows up, then you actually probably have no chance because he'd probably pick you off one by one.
And some of these backstories are interesting. Do you know what was going to summon Kevin?
I think it was supposed to be the film strip that, that the one guy's looking at.
The film was going to summon Kevin. Yeah.
I think that kills the joke.
What?
I mean, the whole joke is that it's Kevin. I mean, that's the joke,
right?
Having an actual thing for it kills it.
It kind of does, yeah.
It really does. To me, it's like it's really funny. Yeah, it's Kevin. And it's like, oh well, see, Kevin is this interdimensional. I'm like, forget it. You just ruined the whole thing.
No, he's just a normal guy.
I'll spoil it even more for you. According in IMDb, it says Kevin is a tribute to the Elijah Wood character of the same name in the movie Sin City.
Okay.
Yeah. So come on, it's on the internet. It's true.
Remember that character. I remember the movie, but not that guy.
I haven't seen that movie either.
It's been a lot. Yeah, it's been a while. For good measure. Oh, go ahead.
I did want to throw this out there. This is the first movie that we've done that I've actually seen. Well, no, God, no, I forgot used cars.
You mean seen before we?
Well, hey, depending on what order these things come out, this could be.
Well, for good measure, I'm gonna cheat and copy you because the one I would most want to face is the unicorn, but for different reasons. Because I feel like I could horse whisper it, and we could join forces, and then it'd be like She-Ra, and that would be great.
Well,
you guys remember the unicorn, right? I mean, you remember him killing that guy.
Yeah, but he's only got that's all he can do, right?
But Alan, that guy wasn't a virgin.
Well, that's the thing, right?
I was very surprised Bill did not make a virgin joke when I mentioned the unicorn.
Yeah, you go.
Not being afraid of it.
It took me a while.
You're getting old, Bill.
I know.
Yeah, and I think the doctors would be the worst because I just hate that whole.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Fornicus, the guy with the guy who's supposed to be like Hellraiser. That no good will come of that either. I mean, that's.
Guess it depends on how you look at it, but.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't pick Sasquatch, Bill.
Sasquatch?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't pick that one.
I would have, but with all the Sasquatch porn that's come out, I'm not sure how he would kill me.
Then it could have been the worst.
Yeah.
Or best.
Or best, yeah. Depending on what you're into.
Yeah.
Wait, you're not sure how he would kill you because of the porn? What do you have, like something you can like blackmail him with, and he wouldn't kill you?
We'll explain it to you later, Alan.
Am I too subtle?
Just Google Mr. Hands. No, wait, actually don't.
Don't.
I'm not Googling anything else that Zach tells me.
Oh, no, not at all.
And listeners, please don't Google that either.
Edit that out, Alan.
Yeah, Alan, edit that out.
Yeah,
Alan.
Okay. That's edited out.
Oh my goodness. So a little history on this film. They originally were starting to work on it in 2008 with an ETA of 2010, but ended up getting released in 2012, like Zach mentioned, because MGM was broke, I believe. Is that what was happening?
Yeah. I think it was MGM. This was around the time that they were also like, I think a couple other movies got delayed, right? Because I think the Hobbit movies were supposed to get made earlier, but they got delayed, which, too bad they didn't just get canceled. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just jump right into this. Director, Drew Goddard. It is his directorial debut. Writers, Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon. Producer, Jason Clarke.
executive producer, pardon me, music guy and composer. I don't want to screw up his last name, David Julian.
I've always thought it was pronounced Julian. Yeah,
All right, great.
I assume that.
Cinematography, Peter Denning. Art direction, Tom Retta, Michael Diner, Kendall Elliott. Makeup by the AFX studio, David Anderson, and I think everyone knows Heather Langenkamp, and a ton of other people to make all of those monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else that anyone would like to give a shout out to? And does anybody have any thoughts on any of these people?
I was blown away to find. I guess I'm sure I've heard this in the past, but I forgot that Heather Langenkamp has gone into the makeup biz, and I think that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool. Everyone did a great job. There's no weak link in this film.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, like even without knowing this, that Drew Goddard had actually worked with Joss Whedon a lot on Buffy and Angel, and I think the script, it's pretty self-evident from that. But I thought that was kind of interesting, and I guess originally Joss Whedon was working on this with him, but Whedon was talking about directing it, but eventually, I guess Drew Goddard ended up directing it.
Which is good, because apparently one of the other directors that they were thinking about, and I have no idea why they would be thinking about this, was Victor Salva.
God.
Oh.
Yep.
Whoops.
Yeah, because they like Jeepers Creepers.
Why anyone would consider him for anything?
I like Jeepers Creepers too, but I wouldn't hire him for anything. It's just, we don't need to get into all the horrible details and everything. I mean, I believe, people serve their time and great, but that doesn't mean, no. So I don't know why this guy keeps getting chances to do something when.
Yeah, it's not like he got a standing ovation at the Oscars. Oh wait, sorry, wrong pedophile.
God. All right, moving on. Renee Davis.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Alan, anything from you?
No, I mean, I would just like to say, as far as like directors and producers and, best boys and all that good stuff, I couldn't care less, and I don't keep up with it. So if you told me that if you told me that Joe Williams directed this, I would absolutely say, hey, that's great. I rarely, if ever, see the correlation between, this is obvious that, about his work in the 80s on whatever. It's completely over my head. I don't look at the director and say, hey, I'm watching that because he directed it. I simply look at what the movie's about to watch it. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. And if there are others out there in the world like me, I'd love to hear from you.
That's why you'll never be a Victor Salva, because he cares about the best boy.
God.
I care about the best boy. I just...
Well, anyway, I always associate the film with Joss Whedon, and don't like Drew Goddard just kind of always drops off when I think about it. Like, it's funny. It was always like, Joss Whedon, and then Drew Goddard. Like, it was like, wait, I had to actually go back and go, wait, he didn't direct it. He was a writer and producer, but it wasn't. So it's funny because you really associate it more him with it, because he was sort of the bigger name and the bigger face.
Right.
Like you said, Bill, back in the time. That was, it's Joss doing a horror movie. Oh, cool.
He had his own track at Dragon Con. There was a Joss Whedon track, and justifiable because of all the stuff there. And it is unfair. This feels like, everyone calls it a Joss Whedon movie. It certainly reads like it. The screenplay reads like it. But of course, like you said, as Zach said, Drew Goddard did write for Angel and Buffy. So he was perfectly capable of writing in that style. But when you get to a line of dialogue like the whole, it was you, I learned it from you. Okay, now I laughed out loud. I love jokes like that because I'm pretty sure hardly anyone got it. If you weren't alive to see those drug ads back in the 70s or 80s where dad comes in the room and he's found some weed in the kid's underwear drawer, and he's like, where'd you get this stuff? Who taught you about this? And the kid's like, it was you, I learned it from you. And the dad looks properly ashamed because and then
he's like clearly coked out.
Yeah.
Right. And then the commercial cuts to black where, if stayed with it, he probably would roll a joint, they'd smoke together and hash things over and all. But yeah, that's a funny bit, but I wonder if anyone else gets it. But
I got it. I got it, Bill.
My kids actually got it.
As old as I am. Jesus. Yeah, of course you did.
But Joss Whedon is one of the writers as well, so it's
Sure.
not it's not quite
Well-
a poltergeist situation.
That's
Or
literally about what I was
purportedly a
about to
poltergeist
say. Yeah,
situation.
Right.
I think
And
it's.
I
I think
think-
it's. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say that you actually might be able to expand on it. From my understanding was that Joss had kind of built the framework or the bones of the story, and then he and
Mhm.
Drew kind of fleshed it out together. So maybe that's part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this definitely has kind of his fingerprints all over it, and that's probably why. I mean, like I said, the script, and we'll get into this a little bit when we start talking about the actors and the characters and stuff. But like, there is something when Joss Whedon is writing, like, when he's writing for his own projects, there is such a immediately definable way that the characters talk
Yeah.
and act, and this film just has that in spades.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I think in some ways, although listen, I love Buffy and I love Angel even more, but there's a kind of a quippiness to it that works fine for television, would not translate as well to a movie thing. And I think they avoid that with this. The characters, they're self-aware, they're all intelligent, and they have some funny bits and everything, but it's not quite as whackety schmackety schmoo as sometimes Buffy could get when everyone's like quick with the patter and everything. They avoided that a bit, and I think it's to the movie's benefit. So I thought they did a good job with the writing. I think it's really well written.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey,
Quick sidebar. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if we're still on that, I was gonna jump to the cinematographer, but
Oh,
just to bother Alan. I was taking a look to see what else he did because I was like, I really like the style of it. Well, one of the movies that this is always kind of associated with, one of the things, especially The Cabin, is Evil Dead. Well, he was a cinematographer on Evil Dead 2.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good for him.
Director of photography, yeah. So, but he did a ton of stuff. I mean,
Oh,
granted, he
And
did
I would
Drop
love to
Dead
say I can
Fred,
see those influences in this film, but as you know, I cannot.
Wow.
You could lie though.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. It's funny because he did that. He also did. I mean, he's done a couple of horror films. He did that. He did Scream 2 and 3. He's also been David Lynch's DP for a while. He shot Mulholland Drive.
Oh, that's
He
beautiful.
shot
Yeah.
Lost Highway, and he also shot one of my favorite films of the last decade, Twin Peaks season 3. That's a bit of a joke, but
and he
it's not a
shot Drop
movie.
Dead Fred as well.
It would have been
Yeah.
funnier if you said New Mutants.
Oh no,
Oh.
because people wouldn't have bought it because no one saw that movie.
Did it actually
anyways,
come out? Did it
got it.
finally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh
I
yeah,
missed that.
it came out in the middle of the pandemic, so they could brag. It's like we were the #1 movie for that week. It's like, yeah, anyone. Blood of the Mummy could have been the #1 movie if we stuck it into a theater. So yeah.
He also notably did what I believe was Wes Craven's only non-horror film, which I believe won an Oscar, Music of the Heart.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting.
Hmm.
And Scream 2,
Yeah.
But
and
that
Joe's
he said-
Apartment, and yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. So he's one of those DPs. When you go and look at his credits, he often shows up. Like he's shot multiple films for David Lynch, for Sam Raimi, for Jay Roach. So he's one of those. He's obviously someone that these directors like working with.
Well, that tells.
I can understand why.
He's not only good at what he does, but also he probably gets along with people well. You hear a lot about this. There can often be a lot of fighting on the set between the DP and the director.
Yeah. It's funny because he also worked on I Heart Huckabees.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
He's probably the only person that David O. Russell wasn't screaming at.
So I personally think that this has one of the best opening scenes. in
I
a horror
agree.
movie. Yes.
Yep.
And
Yes.
yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about it, as it's kind of ending, they're driving down this corridor in this little golf cart contraption, and Bradley Whitford looks over at Richard Jenkins and says, "Are you even listening to me?" And I thought it was so great because I thought, in the movie theater at that moment, how many people were so confused and maybe talking to each other that they too were not listening to Bradley Whitford.
Yes.
Yes.
And according to IMDb, the movie's opening was a deliberate attempt by filmmakers Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon to confuse the audience and make them think they had walked in to see the wrong movie. And part of me absolutely loves that. I and everything. And the other part of me puts himself in the place of a studio executive who is left with the fact that yes, that's a really funny joke and it actually worked and the movie bombed. So good going, guys. Maybe sometimes you can be too clever, confusing the audience. Because again, when I watched this, I laughed out loud when the title came on, and a bunch of people turned around and looked at me like, "What's wrong with you? And what's wrong with this movie?" And I really do think that some people had a hard time getting back into it at that point. Like they weren't sure what was going on and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
Well, the switcheroo happens even earlier. The very first shots, the opening, are
Yeah.
it's like kind of a very traditional kind of horror movie with panning, and you have these various old woodcuts of human sacrifices, and all of a sudden it's like that hard cut to the workplace comedy, just like boom, right from that, and all of a sudden you're like, what? So yeah, the whole being in the wrong theater, or it could be that they put the wrong film on. When my son and I went to go see Pirates of the Caribbean 3, all of a sudden it was the opening to I'm not sure which one was out at the time, Hostel 2, or was it I grabbed him, we ran out of the theater. I said they put the wrong thing in, and I ran down to get the manager and came back, and then I see like this whole group of people just and their kids standing outside the theater looking shocked and just horrified.
I can
or like when
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I had another one.
Oh, okay.
This was actually
who's the projectionist, Zach?
Well, when my
Obviously,
wife
you guys
was
ran
little,
out because you hadn't seen the first two and you didn't want to spoil it. Right?
exactly,
right.
yeah. Well, the other thing was when my wife was little, they were going to see Gentle Ben. They were going to the kids thing. It was going to be Ben, Gentle Ben, Gentle Ben. And what did they show? They showed Ben, the sequel to Willard with Killer Rats, and she was there. But they showed the whole movie, and she said like they were all just permanently scarred from them then on. So.
Wow.
Well,
I can almost one up that, because when I mentioned I worked at a theater for a long time, I remember coming in one morning and the projectionist was super upset, and he was like, I was like, what happened? Is like, oh, someone forgot to move. And this was back in the day when we had 35 millimeter film prints. And he was like, someone forgot to move one of the prints yesterday, and I started the wrong movie. And I was like, well, what was supposed to be playing? And he's like, oh, it was supposed to be the Incredibles. I said, well, what did you start instead? He said, Saw.
Oh,
God.
well.
So yeah,
Whoops.
good times.
Yeah.
But now, talking about being confused, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it at home, but I remember, by the time it came out at home, I'd sort of already heard some of the hype about how this was like, oh, it's a different type of movie, yada, yada, yada. And I started watching it. And when you get beyond that first scene to where I guess they're at, I don't know, I guess wherever their college is, about 10 minutes in, I'm like, well, this is just like every other 80s slasher movie. And it's weird because it's sort of like a whirlwind of expectations that sort of get, you think are dashed and they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was
So
actually.
I guess that's the second scene really that is after the credits come on.
I think it's also really smart that they started it that way, because I think a traditional, I think I could envision other screenwriters writing this film and treating the entire fact that, everything that's happening is part of this bigger plan, treating that as like a third act twist. Whereas this film, they literally just open with the most mundane office talk possible, and they immediately introduce you to this world where these boring old guys are responsible for basically torturing and killing these teenagers.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm the only one, in this boat, but I mean, to be honest, the first time I watched this, I had forgotten about the first scene when they cut back to them. I was like, oh yeah, those guys. Now they're going to tie this together. I mean, I saw that. Then the second scene where I thought, okay, this is just going to be like this is just another slasher movie or whatever. Then they cut back to those guys, and I realized I had completely forgotten that they were there. It's like, oh yeah, so something's going on.
Yeah.
What's cool also is if you. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Oh no, I was just gonna. I could see if someone were to make it now, they'd probably make the big flip when Thor jumps the motorcycle across, and you think he's going to make it,
Yes.
and then he slams into and slides down, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, what just happened?" And then they explain everything. And yeah, that'd be a cool twist, but I think I would hate that because
And you
it
know,
just came
they
out of the
still
blue.
do that. They still do that in the film where they are. I can't remember which shot it is, and I think it's when the zombies come out or whatever. You know, they cut back to inside, and there's
Mhm.
like, you know, I forget what they're called, but you know, redneck zombies it is or something.
Right.
They still do that, but that's not your first encounter with those people
Yeah.
in the facility or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Can
All
we
right.
also just?
So,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No.
No, I was just gonna say if we're talking about the opening, can we just talk about how arguably the best part of this film is Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
just where
them
I was
so
going.
much.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Just to run it down, it was Bradley Whitford playing Steve Hadley, Richard Jenkins as Gary Sitterson. Amy Acker showed up. She was
Mhm.
Wendy in the chem department. Also, somebody from that Buffy
Oh yeah, she was a
Angel
big part of
universe.
Angel.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta tell
Oh
you,
yeah.
none of these people are my favorite character.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, Amy Acker is also, I should note, one of my favorite characters from Dollhouse.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say one of my favorite well, I love everyone on that show, but she plays one of my favorite characters.
Nice.
Now, my favorite character is definitely the guy at the gas station. I don't remember his character.
We'll get to
We'll
that.
get to him. He's from Harvard.
Yeah, Mordecai.
Yeah,
Harbinger.
Harbinger.
Yeah.
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 But what's great is that it's a workplace comedy. I mean
Yeah.
that
Yes.
whole segment. And if you watch it, if you've watched it again, you know, the first time you watch it, you don't really necessarily know what's going on. You watch it again, there's a lot in that opening dialogue where they're talking, where you're finding out about, you know, it's
Yeah.
what's going on, and then blaming the chem department. I mean, there's like a whole setup that when you haven't watched it before is just like, oh, it's something. But you can
Mhm.
actually pick out specifics and things like that of what's going on with when you come back and see it a second time.
I'd watch
Yeah.
a TV show that was just about this operation. Basically, The Office with monsters and stuff, and they just kill a bunch of different teenagers every week. And
Mm.
yeah, these characters were fun. They were
Yeah.
really enjoyable.
Incidentally, the 98 incident is a reference to the movie The Faculty.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Again,
Oh.
see that kills the joke for me.
Oh,
See,
God.
I'm that kind of person who likes world building where you don't tell me everything. I think we've covered this before, where I don't
Well-
want all the additional information. I want it it's like I want to put that in my head what 98 is. But that's kind of cool though.
Make sure you don't
I
listen
love
to
a
our
fun fact.
podcast, Paul.
I was going to say, you might want to hang up. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm willing to sacrifice.
Good.
I do also love the fact that they have the security guard character played by Brian J. White, and he comes in, and I feel like again in other films, other screenwriters would use him as that kind of the character that's basically just there so other characters can explain to him what's going on, and they do
Right.
that a little bit, but it's very subtle, and it's
Mhm.
not, I'm always reminded of a movie like Inception, which does this just in spades. Like half the
Right.
movie is the main character explaining the concept of the film to another character, and it's really impressive how little of that they actually do, or how they do it so naturally in the script.
Mhm.
And
Right.
what was that character supposed to be securing? Because they had like 1,000 security guards. Was he just their personal security?
I think so, right? Like that
I
section.
think, yeah, just
And
just for
it
their
might have been
control
part
room.
of- it might
Yeah, I can
It
think
might have been part of the setup, not letting you know how big the operation was. It's like, oh, we've got the security guy, and then by the end, it's like, oh, well, they've got 100 security people. It's just, what's this one more guy gonna do?
Well, clearly they didn't have enough.
Right? They needed more than the one more.
But Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford, just the scenes with them specifically, the
Mhm.
back and forth with them. I think
Mhm.
Richard Jenkins is arguably my favorite actor in this movie. I think he's been in so much other stuff. He was in the what was it, the Let the Right One In remake, which I know a lot of people don't like, but
Oh,
I love
yeah.
his performance in that movie.
Mhm.
He's in Kong Skull Island. He's one of these actors that
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've seen a lot of stuff where he's like a leading man, but
Mhm.
he is so good in everything he does, and I love him so much. And he's also, I mean, he's hilarious in this movie, just
He
being
is.
like such a completely dry character.
Yeah.
Yes. And his character is amazing too. In the beginning, he gives some pretty reason. He's talking to, Bradley Whitford's character about problems he's having with his wife or girlfriend, and very reasonable, good advice. Later he kind of does some stuff where he just saves the day. It's just a kind of a great, really great character.
Yeah, it's an ironic thing that these are very likable characters, but of course, they're doing a terrible thing, or are they? I mean, that
Well,
we'll
they're
get,
justifying it.
yeah, we'll get into it later. It's like the heroes, the folks that we're rooting for, destroy the world, and the people that the so-called bad guys here, while what they're doing is certainly unpleasant for the 5 people who die, save another 8 billion. So you get into morality. Is it justified to kill 5 people to save 8 billion? And I guess we all have a place where we draw that line. But yeah, it's and that's, I guess, maybe the one criticism I'll have for it is that the ending is so nihilistic.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it is pretty cool.
Well,
And
I
Paul,
think we can talk about the theme later, but I think it ties into the whole theme of the
Yes.
film itself.
Yeah, there's definitely some thoughts on that. And I will say, Paul, you will love this. Brian J. White's character, his name was Alex Truman. And there's a theory that he is much like the Truman Show, where he is observing basically what is happening in his life, and he has absolutely no way to control it or stop it.
Huh. Okay.
Just wanted to ruin that for you a little bit.
Oh no, that one's not as bad. That's not as bad
Okay,
as
good.
Kevin.
All right.
So-
Yeah, I'm now googling other things that I can behind the scenes stuff I can ruin about this movie.
It's not so much.
Perfect.
It's not so much behind the scenes. It's the world building aspects of it that where they just
I'm trying,
Now
I'm
you have a
trying to
focus.
tailor my comments to where we're at in the film, and we're sort of.
Well,
I
I'm
guess
going to cut to
minutes.
this part where you'll know where we're in. Don't worry.
Well, no, I was going to say, but I did have something that was at the beginning that didn't really tie in. But yeah, I mean, surely and they even touch on this at the end where the guy says, "I don't think whatever his name is even has a cousin."
Yeah.
How are you brought? And maybe because they had tampered with all this other stuff and infiltrated, her hair dye and all that junk. I mean, maybe that just sort of plays into the plot, but the guy's cousin has bought a cabin and wants them to come up. I mean, to me, that's like one of the things that they didn't really tie together. It's like, okay, well, your cousin bought the cabin and he wants you to come up, but how did that work? Did he just send you an email and say, "Hey, I'm your cousin, I bought a cabin, go there," or because
everybody in the family knows somebody who has a cabin somewhere.
Right, but did you call him? Did they call
Maybe
him and
this
say,
was-
"Hey, you got to come to this cabin I bought"? Or
Maybe
maybe
he shot him
Alan, you mentioned that whole part about, I don't think he even has a cousin. Well, again, this comes into the world building thing. Maybe in the novelization it gives the whole details, but at least in my head canon, it's the idea that they've been manipulating with drugs and however many ways. Well, they set this up and somehow hypnotized him or drugged him or something to set him up.
So think he had a cousin with a cabin. Okay,
right. So they can arrange it.
Yep.
Again, it may be spelled out somewhere.
Smoke.
In my
Remember,
head
they sent
canon,
out that mist or whatever that made him decide. He's like, "Hey, we should split up instead of sticking together."
This is the part of the movie that you find implausible, that a guy wouldn't go into, if his cousin calls up. Where did they get all these
that's
monsters?
the only part of this movie that doesn't make sense. Well, there's a couple more.
Where did they get these monsters from? Did they? How does that work? What do they feed
Bill,
them?
they collected them as they found them. They collected them one by one.
It's like, did the evil gods give them monsters?
Put it in a thing.
Oh my goodness.
They've been building this over thousands of years.
Yeah.
I just looked it up, and apparently the backstory is that his cousin is actually Kevin.
Oh, there you go.
It all ties together.
Right,
It all ties
actually makes
together.
sense.
Ruined it.
Oh man, I'm done.
Oh God! All right.
Wow.
Next
So,
thing you're gonna tell me in Lord of the Rings, there's some way that Bilbo got that ring. That just
so we cut to Dana's apartment where everybody's kind of getting it together. Dana is played by Kristen Connolly. Her best friend Jules, played by Anna Hutchinson. Then a good old
And let me
Thor
ask the
rolls
obvious
up.
question
Chris
here.
Hemsworth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do women walk around when there's windows on 3 sides of you in their underwear?
I hope
I've
so.
never seen that.
Well, I guess, Alan, you don't spend a lot of time looking in women's
I
windows like
look
I
out
have.
my window all the time to see if I see things like that, and I don't.
Alan, looking out your window doesn't make any sense. Sometimes I don't even know you. You got to look through their window.
Okay, I'm gonna come to Bill's house tonight about 2 a.m. and look out his window.
No, you got to try someone else's home. Am I the only person who understands how this works?
I said I'm coming to your house at 2 a.m. to look out the window.
I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Oh.
Oh boy.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Good point, though.
Yeah. So Chris Hemsworth, we've got him up here. We've got Jesse Williams playing the role of Holden McRae. I say that like he's a person that we wanted to see. No, I'm just kidding. Fran,
Jeez.
I have some personal issues.
Oh,
Fran Kranz is absolutely amazing as Marty Mikowski. And just to quickly run down, Dana is going to be do you want me to give the archetypes? She's going to be playing the role of the virgin. And Jules is going to be the whore. Kurt, Kurt is going to be the athlete. Holden the scholar, and Marty the fool. And we will see how that pans out for them.
And actually, listening to the archetypes help me know which characters they are. Aside from because except for Marty, Marty's the one I knew by name. Otherwise, it's like it's Chris Hemsworth. It's
Thor,
her,
three other people,
and him. Yeah. And it was like, other than that, Marty's the only one whose name I knew.
Yeah.
That is interesting. You're right. The names did not stick with me.
Yeah,
no, not really.
Except Marty.
So,
except we called him Shaggy. Like during the movie, me and my son were like, "Look, it's Shaggy." Yeah. And when we thought he got killed, we were like, "No, not Shaggy."
I totally wrote my notes like that in the beginning. It was like redhead does this, blonde does this, Thor does this. So yeah, I gotcha.
Did you really think that Shaggy was dead when he died off screen?
Yeah, we still had to go, "It's Shaggy."
Yeah,
that was part of the fun of it.
That
was part of the fun.
I do think that this core cast, I think, is indicative of I don't know. I think I have maybe two problems with this film that I'll discuss. And I think my first one is definitely Fran Kranz was also. Am I the only one who watched Dollhouse? I know I keep mentioning it.
Apparently, so.
Okay. Yeah.
But I knew he was part of that. But no.
On your recommendation, I'll seek it out now.
Yeah. So he was also in Doll. No, it's actually a pretty good show. I mean, like most Joss Whedon shows, it only lasted for 2 seasons. But so he's in that show too, and it's funny because he's actually playing a very similar character, or he's not a similar character, but he has a very similar personality. And I think that he is, and this is probably why Joss Whedon works with the same actors and actresses so much. He has perfected the art of delivering the Whedon-esque dialogue, and I love him so much in this movie. But my only problem with him is that I think he does such a good job delivering this dialogue that it actually reflects badly, or it makes it more obvious that some of the other actors have trouble with delivering some of this dialogue in such a way that it doesn't come off as, I don't know. It almost feels like to deliver the Whedon-esque dialogue, you have to be in on the joke, and sometimes I feel like some of the actors aren't really in on the joke. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Like there's another actor who Whedon has worked with, Tom Lenk, who plays Ronald the Intern.
Yes.
I'd watch a movie that was Ronald the Intern and Marty doing a road trip together or something.
Yes.
How fun would that be?
That would be great.
Yeah, that it's true, and or maybe it's just that they write. That's the kind of character they write the best dialogue for.
Yeah.
The others, the archetype of the others. Listen, the virginal girl is not the most interesting character in a horror movie, and the athlete is just usually a big meathead that dies, and the whore is just a whore. I mean, if you look at it from they're kind of sending up a horror film, these characters are probably the best examples of those archetypes that have ever been in a horror movie.
Except the thing is, they're not the archetypes. That's
exactly
kind of is that they aren't the archetypes. That's the virgin is the one who was sleeping with her professor, and the whore is the pre-med
she's really
student.
Not. She's a pre-med student.
And the athlete is the one who's the
Yeah.
psychology, sociology major. You know,
Yeah.
so it's and the scholar is the one who's like catching the football and stuff. So
Yeah,
This-
but like
this is-
Sigourney Weaver said, they work with what they got.
They work with what they got. Yeah.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That is
Mhm.
actually my other core problem with this film that I think doesn't work is that they try to touch on this later on that they are being influenced by, you know, the drugs and stuff.
Right.
But they never really other than, like, you know, Chris Hemsworth has the one scene where he's like, oh no, don't read this other book instead, to establish, oh, he's actually really smart. But they don't actually go, I don't know, I feel like there's not enough development of these characters early on to then go and subvert that. And every single time I watch this movie, I feel like, Marty's mentioning that, oh, everyone's acting really weird. And as a viewer, I'm always just like, I don't actually see that big of a difference, you know,
Yeah.
after they start
No,
to go under the
definitely-
influence.
I agree with you on that one, definitely.
I will actually disagree. No, I'm just
Oh.
kidding.
Whoa,
But I am
go
going
for
to
it.
disagree.
Marty is the one.
Go for it.
Don't you remember? Marty is not influenced. They said they missed one of his stashes, so he is
But
not.
he's the
influenced
one.
by
He's the one that notices that everyone else is.
Yeah.
He
Right,
arcs,
right.
but in the opposite sense. But we're not there yet. I got to disagree first.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because Chris Hemsworth character, they mentioned that he's a sociology major with a full academic scholarship. But also, if you notice in the very beginning scene, he's with the three of them in that room and is completely, you know, eyes up. And then he says to her, like, yo, you're not wearing pants, and rolls out of the room. And then later he's like, yo, take your top off. So it kind of, to me, gave the impression of like, this is a guy who's not a scumbag and
Right.
who is, you know, Grant told her immediately, like, yo, you're not wearing pants. But yes,
Well, I don't think he noticed actually at first.
well,
That's
it's
kind of the
very
point,
possible,
like
right?
he's just too focused on everything else.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, I guess to a certain extent they try it. If anything, if I was to change absolutely anything about this movie, I would maybe want a little bit of, and I guess, you know, the movie is incredibly well paced. So if they had done this, I probably would be complaining that it's too long. But just a
Yeah.
little more establishment of the characters. I don't know.
But I think
Well, and I
part
will
problem is-
say, oh, I'm sorry. I will
No,
say
no,
he's
no,
actually the only one I can say that about. So
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like if they went much further with the characters becoming the archetypes, they'd be very unlikable, because those are usually, you know, pretty unlikable characters and everything.
Mhm.
So I'm dying of curiosity, why Renee doesn't like Holden.
Oh yeah, good question.
Well, it's really just one of those things. What do they call that? I forget. Jesse Williams was married to his longtime girlfriend, and then when he got
ooh,
yes, and when he
got
had
some
his
tea here.
comeuppance, he decided to upgrade, and I did not appreciate that very much. And he was really kind
Wow.
of shitty through the whole situation with, you know, they had kids and divorces and
Oh.
you know, all that stuff, but I just did not.
So basically, he became famous and kind of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
When did
Oh, and
he
I
become
think and he
famous?
actually
Are you
cheated on his
liking a
wife.
character based on his personal life?
When did he become famous?
No, the character's fine. Thank you. Exactly.
Grey's Anatomy.
Exactly.
Well, no, I was just like he just got divorced last year.
Oh no,
Right?
he was on Grey's Anatomy.
Yes,
okay.
that's when he
Yeah.
kind of got his thing.
Which is-
And I think he actually cheated on his wife with a girl that he was in a movie with. But no, the character Holden is fine. I don't, you know, give a shit about him one way or the other. But it's just Jesse. Jesse.
I think he's probably the most boring character,
He's probably a delight in real
just
life.
because he's
but
underwritten.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he-
absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So, you know, once the kids roll out, they are getting to probably what most people, one of the favorite parts, I would say, is when they run into the Harbinger, Mordecai, played by Tim DeZarn. Yeah, any thoughts on this encounter?
I just love that they, you know, that is such a classic character in you start, because a lot of times you don't realize it until this movie and you're like, what are they talking about? Oh, wait a minute, right, that old guy who shows up in every slasher movie is like, I wouldn't go down to Camp Crystal Lake if I were you, and like and yeah, that guy shows up all the time. To have him be a, you know, some kind of major part of this ritual. And
if you think about it, he's only got a few lines, but I don't know,
Yeah.
to me at least they were memorable. The one out, you know, he spits, he's like, you sassing me, boy.
yeah,
And then later on, you know, at the end, he gets on the phone and I can't even imitate it, but he's talking about like some, you know, like in this deep,
Yeah.
So
voice,
good.
like, the world, a pit. Am I on speakerphone? It's just like he comes right out of it and goes right back into it. I mean,
That's what's great is
That's the best
he
part.
really believes in this. This is a
Yeah.
big deal for him. And the others have been doing this for so long that it has become absolute routine. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like the character. This is really a kind of awesome, unbelievable, terrible thing. And he appreciates that. He's treating it with the reverence that it deserves. And for everyone else, it's kind of a funny commentary that if no matter how awesome or cosmic or unbelievable something is, if you do it long enough, it just becomes a job.
Mm-hmm.
I think the contrast is great.
It's also interesting. I mean, they don't really touch on this at all, and it's not really inferred. So I'm just kind of inferring it myself. But the idea that if you are privy to the information that these people are, that there are these gods that will destroy the world if they don't make these sacrifices, like, yeah, some people can kind of compartmentalize that and just make it a day job, but some people are going to turn it into almost, they are going to pursue their job with almost a religious fervor, right? And they are going to kind of take it. I mean that's basically. I mean that is. What's happening is that these are people that know that gods exist and that they are actually very angry gods, right? So I kind of like the idea that there are certain people that are almost become zealots in their own right, even if they're performing their job.
If anyone survives this movie, it's Mordecai.
I would watch an entire spin-off. I would actually watch an entire show, like a mini webisodes that's just him, and every year like a new RV full of kids comes by.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Someone should write that down for the thing. All right, so the kids do finally, for some reason, make their way to the cabin.
Sorry, can I say one other thing? I think
Yeah.
this is where I love all of his lines, but this is some of my favorite lines from Marty when he's like, do you think they take credit cards? He's like, I don't think they know about money. And when he says when he's talking to the Harbinger when he's leaving, I don't know. I love everything. I'm gonna just mention that every single scene we talk about. I'm gonna mention his lines,
or like fighting in the Civil War.
Which war was that? Was that the red and the blue and the gray brother fighting brother? Yeah. Love it so much.
War it was.
Yeah.
He's great. Yes. And I appreciate it too for the character that he is. You don't normally think of like the laid back stoner characters being, more aggressive. But I thought it was pretty great that he stood up for his friends.
That's a great line. I mean, when this came out, 2011, because I'm looking at him and I'm looking at when this came out, I'm like, I really don't know what war you're talking about.
The Crimean War. Yeah, I don't know. War ages a man. It could be the Gulf War. It could be Vietnam, Korea. I don't know.
Oh God.
We've been in a lot of wars, dude.
Yeah. So I'm just compelled to mention this one thing here after the kids get to the cabin and they head over to the lake. There is the incident in the house with Dana and Holden with the reverse mirror situation. But when they get to the lake, I would like to mention that Fran was not able to participate because he has abs and they didn't think it would be right for his character to have abs, and they told him to keep a shirt on.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Same thing happened to mine.
Marty.
Marty was basically
I figured. I thought.
Oh,
so.
well, you forgot. Okay, there's a scene leading up to that. Where the eagle flies into whatever that wall is.
Oh yes, thank you.
That is another scene. I remember when I watched this the first time, I was like, "Ooh, wonder what that is." I had completely forgotten about it when it came back into play.
How funny!
I was like, "Oh yeah!" I mean, it's just so weird. It's
That's
like
why
they
they
had given
put
me
those
some of that
scenes in there
miss.
to remind the audience. Yeah.
It's like they had given me some of that miss to make me forget, because it's like, surely that's going to come back into play here, right? But I had completely forgotten about it because there was so much more going on. And even when he jumped the thing, I mean, now today I knew what was going to happen, but the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, well, let's see if he makes it. I was like, oh yeah, the wall.
So here's my question. That wall is around the entire cabin area, right?
Guess so.
I
Yeah.
think
I mean, it
so,
must be, right?
I
Like a
would
bubble?
assume it's
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
except
It's
that
like he
tunnel.
says, it's almost a Truman Show-esque dome. Yeah.
Yeah. So can
Well,
I?
we only see it there, but yeah, I would imagine
Yeah.
that how we were talking about we're gonna walk down
So
the other side and
can I
get
point
out,
out a
and she
problem
was
here?
saying,
They, the whole idea is they bring these 5 people to a cabin. They die in some horrible, monstrous way in the right order, and if they do that right, the gods are happy and everything. So it feels to me like Thor's death kind of violates the thing. He doesn't die because of the monsters. He dies because of the technology that these guys have come up with. If that's legit, just pick 5 people and slit their throats in the right order. It
well,
feels
and
to me like
They
his
exactly
have
death.
to
right,
do
because
that.
in
I
the
think that's
end they were just gonna shoot him in the head.
Yeah, I
Right?
think the implication was it used to be like a
Yeah.
standard human sacrifice. But the other thing is they said, you're not the only one watching. The elder gods are watching, and I think the gods were like, they're okay with
They got to be
some
entertained.
random death. But yeah, if you can entertain, like that's why they have she's got to take off her top because you're not the one watching. Which I mean,
Oh,
again gets back
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the theme. But
that's a
we
good
can
point.
cover the theme
Ooh.
later. But yeah, that's
And
Yeah.
he did, they mentioned that they have to suffer, and presumably
Yes.
unless he got knocked out, I mean, falling to your death like that, it's pretty terrifying, right?
It was pretty
Like,
bad.
well, they have him kind of like bouncing off
Yeah,
repeatedly.
bouncing off the wall.
Yeah.
Also, he saw his girlfriend's head get cut off by like an
Yeah.
old rusty saw. So maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. This is also when they get back in the cabin. We're starting to see their characters kind of break down into the archetypes that they are chosen to be. Um,
Mhm.
Kurt starts wearing this Letterman jacket, acts kind of aggro. Holden all of a sudden is super nerd with his like button-up shirt and glasses. Jules is just all over the place, making out with wolves. I never really noticed any different changes with Dana's character, really.
I did actually make a note.
Did
I made
you?
a few notes. It's
Please.
ironic that I made a note about her licking the wolf.
Oh, that was
Would
Jules.
you go into an old dusty cabin and lick a mounted animal on the wall?
If you're old enough,
yes, normally.
I
But
guess that hair dye really, is doing it.
well, they also are pumping in pheromones and things like that into the cabin.
Well, and there's like kids on TikTok licking toilet seats for zero reason at all.
Yeah,
that's true.
Oh,
drugs, or maybe
I will Google that right after I Google Mr. Hands.
No. Once again, please.
Yeah.
Renee, you were
disclosure,
talking about
I've
how
already
Dana
Googled
didn't
Mr.
really change.
Hands.
So
I
Oh
can't
my
get
God.
any
trying to
more.
get back away from the toilet seats and Mr. Hands.
Yeah. Hey, you haven't seen Bad Times at the El
No.
Royale?
It's
No,
on
okay.
the list.
Yeah, no one has. It's not a great movie, but I just realized something. It's actually the only other movie that Drew Goddard has directed, and he also wrote it. But it also heavily features one-way mirrors. So kind of interesting. But yeah,
That's his thing. Okay.
Actually, I want to know
Now,
why he
that
doesn't.
might be
Why
the
he hasn't
kind of
directed into a
thing-
film though? That's what I want to.
That would be the kind of thing I might actually make a connection on. This guy likes one-way mirrors.
yeah, it must be the same director. What do you say, Paul?
I was saying I want to know if there's a story there on why he hasn't directed anything like the guy who directed was it League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? It was so
God.
horrible that he
Yeah,
hasn't
well,
directed anything since then.
I think it's because he's primarily a writer, and I mean he's written for a lot of shows. He wrote on Lost. He's written on some of the Marvel shows, and even though I don't think Cabin in the Woods actually did that bad, but it didn't do that well, and neither did Bad Times at the El Royale. So I don't know. Maybe he hasn't gotten a lot of offers after those two.
Or maybe the other thing is I think it's so discouraging when you put your heart and soul and all that work into directing something and then it underperforms and you probably end up thinking that's 2 years of my life that I don't have a lot to show for. How many scripts can a good writer have written in 2 years? A lot. And that's you got to think about where your time is. You only have so much time before you're considered too old to be the next hot thing in Hollywood. So if the success is in the writing part, that's probably what you stick with. I thought he did a great job in this. I'd like to see him direct some more.
Yeah.
And is there an agreement that this movie didn't do well? Because it's really horrible when really
it's
good
math,
movies
Alan.
don't
It's just
do
yeah.
well. I mean,
I think it did okay. I was looking at the box office, and you can never tell if these numbers are right, but according to the numbers, that is the-numbers.com, the production budget was 30 million and it made 42 domestically and 28 internationally. So which, with Hollywood accounting, I'm sure that
Yeah.
still lost like $1 billion. But
Right.
But
Yeah, I'm sure it
I was
broke
gonna say,
even
for
because I
me-
think it's been pretty popular on video
oh, yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. It's found the
For me personally,
aftermarket.
if I put $30 million into something and it brought back 60, see, I would think that was a good success. I mean, I understand it's
Yeah.
not a.
You're not a Hollywood
it doesn't
accountant.
seem to
You're
be a
not.
blockbuster, but
Well, what's funny is it kind of shows also, at least to me, how we have our own little kind of bubbles in terms of people we interact with. Because most of my friends are people who like horror movies and like comedies and like horror comedy. And so, from the people I always interacted with, it was like, oh yeah, it's a great movie. I love it. So most people I would talk to,
even
like,
if
love
you're
it.
not though, if people that like horror movies, if you say, okay, have you seen? I don't know, Bill. Give us one of yours. The man with two hands, whatever. You're like,
Oh my
like,
god!
no,
I want to
I
write
haven't
that script
seen
right
that.
now. The man with two hands. I
That's
am literally
amazing.
writing this down right now. That title in the history of
But
titles.
if you ask anybody who even remotely likes horror movies, if they've seen this movie, they've seen it.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
what I'm
they've
saying.
seen
That's what I'm saying. We have our kind of our bubbles, whereas the general public is not going to have seen this as much. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly,
I
right?
mean, I don't even. Oh my god! I see. If my wife has seen it, I think the general public has seen it.
Mm.
Well, but if your wife has seen it, it's probably because you've seen it, right? Because you're watching it in the living room.
Oh my god!
No, I mean, we've got a house where she can go into another room. I
I was
mean,
gonna say she leaves you to your own
this is one that
devices.
she liked, and I think she actually enjoyed. Which for
Yeah, fair
her,
enough.
because she says I watch and make a lot of crap. So this was
Oh.
not one in that category.
That is a ringing endorsement. That should be the
Yeah.
It
tagline.
really is.
You watch and make
Make a lot of crap, but this isn't one of them.
Ugh.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, the man with two hands is now filed in my Rolodex of whimsy to be referred to in the future.
I look forward to that.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh. Oh.
If I was writing the man with two hands, there'd be this man. He'd have two hands, and everybody else would just have one arm.
Oh, see, you're messing with my headcanon again. I don't want to know. I just,
Yeah.
Isn't that just that episode of the Twilight Zone where the one was really beautiful?
Isn't everything? I mean, it's all everything is that episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it is. Oh
Yeah.
shoot.
Okay, I don't know
Alright.
how I got off on that. We were talking about the budget of the movie. If you want to corral people back in and how well it did.
No, yeah, I think it was just it did okay.
So well,
but
here's
not-
the thing: did it have a sequel? No.
Yeah.
Should it? Yeah.
well, it'd be a little
They should
hard
make-
since they destroyed the world.
No.
Yeah.
They
They
should
could do a
make
prequel?
A prequel. Make a
I've got-
prequel.
Prequel.
Yeah, last year or whenever they had to do this before, it was
Oh,
picture guy. It's the
F the
clown.
prequel.
Yeah.
Stop prequels. Listen, I got 6 words for you. Beneath the Planet of the Apes. They blew up planet Earth. There was no way there was ever going to be any more Planet of the Apes movies, and there was about 3 or 4 right after it. You could come back.
Yeah, like
All
that's
we
a
saw-
bad thing, Bill.
All we saw
I
was a big
guarantee
hand
you,
come out
if this
and
movie
smash
had
the
made
cabin.
another $100 million, we would have 3 prequels out.
Oh, we'd have a sequel. Look, the hand smashed one cabin. Maybe the gods decided they would leave. I don't know, New Zealand or something.
Yeah, you could make it into a sequel, but I mean, I would love to see another episode of this where it's simply different. A different creature that comes out. Now, I don't want to see 10 of them, but I think a Cabin in the Woods too. I think that would be great. I mean,
I think that would kind of go against the whole again the theme of the film at that point. So
Yeah, I don't know.
What is the
It
theme
is
of the film?
tempting.
well, we can get to that later.
Paul
I don't know. Do you
Paul
want to
is
discuss? I
hoarding
mean,
it.
Renee, do you want
Yes,
to
tell
want
us
to
the thing.
continue
You keep
on?
threatening to tell us.
Well,
the
yes.
thing.
I mean,
Carry
part
on.
of the idea, and I think Josh Whedon and Drew
Stick
Goddard said this.
around
Was
Yeah,
it
right.
was
hard
Stick
to
to the
find out.
script, you guys.
the
Jeez.
theme of
Yeah.
the film.
Well, do you want to get to it later, or
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll
Okay.
get to it when I say we get to it.
all right?
All right. So there's a quick cut before these kids get lured into the basement where it flashes back to the facility and everyone is starting to take bets. They don't really, I don't know that they necessarily specify what they are taking bets on, but they are taking bets.
Which
Yeah,
monster?
they're taking bets on which monster they summon. Yeah.
Do they verify it at that time? Okay. Yeah.
no. I don't think they actually come out and say it 100%. I mean, you know it if you've seen it, but because really, I thought they were taking bets on like who was going to die first. That's what I thought when I saw this the first time. I thought they were taking bets on who would die first. But
Gotcha.
then today I'm like, I knew today when I watched it what they were taking bets on, and I was listening carefully to try to see if they revealed it, and I don't think they did at that point.
But they got a
Yeah.
board. They got a big board with the names.
Well,
I
they
remember-
never showed the board. They didn't show
No
it at that
idea.
time.
Oh, they
had
did?
No, I
Oh.
distinctly
Yeah.
remember when he's taking bets and they show the board that I remember seeing unicorn on there. I remember distinctly seeing that as a.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
they
in a later
do
scene
show
though.
the board.
It was a later
I
scene.
think-
No,
Yeah, I
never
think.
mind.
Yeah, if you're
Never mind.
Renee's right, and technically they don't. I thought you meant in general, but yeah, in the first scene when they're taking bets, I don't think you really know
Okay.
what's going on. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I just wanted to tie in that whole segment because they're taking the bets. Next thing you know, these kids get lured into the basement. Well, Dana gets lured to the basement on a dare, but then everyone joins her, and this room is just full. It's like an overstocked flea market
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, just so much stuff, except nothing's broken.
That's
So
a
yeah. Oh,
that's a direct reference to Evil Dead too, right? When the cabin
yes.
the trap door flies open.
Yeah,
Right.
must
Yeah.
have been the wind. Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. There's a lot of Evil Dead references in this movie. But yeah, so they're doing things and everybody starts messing with something. Jules almost summons the bride as she almost puts the necklace on.
Mhm.
Kurt almost summons the merman and then almost summons Fornicus.
Mhm.
Marty almost summons Kevin. And Holden almost summons the Sugar Plum Fairy before Dana comes in and summons the redneck.
Is the Sugar Plum Fairy the ballerina?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that's what they were calling her. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Buckners, the redneck zombie torture family, has won the game. And incidentally, Patience Buckner, played by Jodelle Ferland, Sharon from Silent Hill.
Hmm.
She also was like the creepy baby from Twilight, but I don't.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm glad
Oh
they
wait,
didn't
she
summon
was
that.
the little girl in the Silent Hill movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Sharon / Alessa. Yeah. So and then we come back to the facility because the Buckners have won and maintenance and Ronald get to share the pot. Yes, and that's at that time we get introduced to the board. Anybody have any thoughts?
Well, the only thing I would say, there's a couple things that I really did appreciate in this movie because I know, like when we've been writing films that are, you've got a killer, you would like to come up with a new killer and also a new weapon. And I don't really think they came up with like a new form of killer, which, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's just going to be some more zombies. But I really did appreciate the use of a bear trap as a weapon.
Yeah.
As
That is
I
pretty
hadn't seen that before.
The bear
Mhm.
trap on the chain was definitely
Yeah.
original and really brutal.
And horrifying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Now, the
what's
other
so
thing
great.
I will say though that you see in all like slasher type movies, what I didn't like was how people would get stabbed or severely mauled with the bear trap and then ran faster than they did before they ever got stabbed or bear trapped.
Yeah, because Marty actually gets stabbed in the back and dragged
Oh
away.
yeah, all the
So,
way
I mean,
through.
you were like,
but
Bill, you were like saying, you thought he was still alive. I'm like, we saw him get stabbed in the back, dragged away and into a pit, and then you hear stabbing, which later you find out it was him dismembering the guy with the
Right.
trowel.
Mhm.
But you see him, he's stabbed in the back. But I guess
He takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
well, I mean, he's like he's got a lot of self medication.
I was gonna say he's very
Yeah.
high. He doesn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing when I first saw it that I thought was a little contrived, when somebody died, they sort of they collected the blood or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I thought it was the blood of the person, and then and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. How do they do that? But then when they collect the blood from him, and then you find out that he's not dead, it's like, okay, it must not really be their blood. It's something else that they're pouring in there. Maybe it's I don't know other blood they have, or some other red magical liquid.
Yeah. They bought a book of how to make films written by Alan Watkins
That's
and
right.
Bill
Yeah,
Mulligan.
yeah.
A lot of blood recipes in that book.
Yep.
That's why this is so good. I see.
Yeah. See?
They learn from the best.
Yes. Basically, things start to go down at this point. As mentioned, although probably not mentioned till later, Jules dies first because that is the rules. The whore has to die first.
Mm.
Then at this point, Marty gets dragged away. Quick cut back to the facility. We find out the Japanese have failed their ritual. And
Hard
One of the
to kill a
best
9-year-old.
cutaway sequences.
yeah.
When they put that girl into the little frog and then everybody could live without
Yeah.
fear, that was great. That was great.
And he gets to give that great line, what a friend we have in Shinto.
And then Bradley Whitford is, I think it's Bradley Whitford, right? Who's just yelling, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," at all
Yes.
the little
These cute
kids.
little Japanese girls. Yeah, it's so inappropriately. It's great.
I gotta say
Yeah.
the editing in this movie is also like really wonderful. The way all the scenes flow together so well, and some of the scenes where they pull away from either these cutaways or what's going on in the cabin to what's going on in the facility is just great.
So,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. Okay, so I'm a little confused. It looked like a Japanese they look like they were 7 years old. Is one of those 7-year-olds the
9.
whore?
They were 9.
Yeah,
They were
9.
So
No,
yeah,
no, 'cause-
9-year-old whore. Come on.
No, because Bill, there are different rules for the different, basically different
Oh,
cultures.
okay. Well, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's totally logical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because isn't in one of the monitors they show like some sort of giant ape creature or
Yeah, it looked
something?
like King Kong in Buenos
Yeah,
Aires.
yeah. And how's that guy gonna choose which people to kill in which order, right? I mean,
Right.
And
Interesting.
during this whole time, they're cutting back, to scenes where Jules and Kurt are walking through the woods, and you see the fog come up, but the fog is really these hormones, and they're playing with the lights and the temperature to kind of keep them doing what they need to be doing. So a lot of manipulation in these scenes.
Hey, Paul, I'm going to ruin something else for you. Remember when they said there'd been no problems since 98?
Yeah.
The number one horror film in the U.S. box office in 1998 was Halloween H2O 20 years later, where the final girl kills the slasher.
Ooh.
So there you go. That must have been, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Don't the final girls usually kill the slasher in a lot of them?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
but usually they kill the slasher and then they turn around and he's gone.
He's gone,
But
yeah.
That's
he
true.
chopped his head off. I mean, now yes, retroactively it turns out it wasn't really him, her. But yeah, as far as the movie goes, yeah, she definitively killed him.
Is that what that's not what that was supposed
So
to be? a
there is
reference
just a
to,
lot
is it?
going on. Oh,
You're
Who
not saying
knows?
that's
This
what
is
that was
all-
a reference to, was it? Okay.
No, I think it's
maybe,
it's a
maybe.
throwaway joke.
It was that or the faculty, whichever one makes Paul the saddest.
You could have
Yeah.
picked any. You could have actually picked any year. They could have said 97, 96.
Right.
And you could find a film that would be appropriate.
I'm just trying to make Paul sad.
And that's right. I'm already.
Oh, God. So I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit. There's just a lot of stuff that goes down. Marty gets allegedly killed. Then they're taken off in the RV. Oh, here's the part. The RV or the tunnel doesn't collapse. Later in the movie, there's mentioned that it was a glitch, but it wasn't a glitch. It was something that upstairs did. So I was very curious about that and what your thoughts were. Were they trying to let them get away because they knew that it failed and they were just like, we have to do this over again?
No, it was.
that
Oh, go ahead.
Marty.
No.
Yeah, it was
I
Marty.
interpreted it as Marty
Yeah.
messing with those electronics, somehow
Yeah.
glitched it.
Yeah, because he actually mentions about messing with them and
They said it was a power reroute from upstairs.
upstairs, but
Yeah.
that means up on the ground level where they were.
That's
Yeah.
why Richard Jenkins
Marty.
freaks out. That's why he like freaks out when they say that.
But they do say that line. They do talk about it being from upstairs before that Marty has done what he's done.
Right. So
Yeah.
at first you think, oh, they mean upstairs like as in management.
Yeah.
But it really literally meant upstairs, like up above.
Yeah, because I
ground where
think
Marty
management
was.
for them is downstairs.
Down below, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's when Kurt tries to jump the ravine and hits the proverbial wall and falls to his death,
Yeah,
which is
to
really
his
just so good.
It's a really great scene. I do want to. We haven't really talked about it, but since we're kind of going kind of scene by scene, I really love David Julian's score for this movie, and I
Mm.
think one of the he's a great composer. This is actually not my favorite film that he's ever done. His probably the best score, as far as I'm concerned, is he did the score for Memento, which is just
Mm.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But he the thing I love about him, he does a lot of these kind of like moody, brooding strings, but he also has a lot of these great stingers where he swells the music, and it's usually when something terrible is about to happen. And that's one of my favorite parts of this scene is he really swells it. He does that like that hero that's swell of the music, and then right before he hits the wall, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
One other thing about that, and for some reason I didn't think about this until he jumped the thing, but why were they in a Winnebago? Other than being able to bring that motorcycle, I don't know why they were in a Winnebago.
Why
I don't
not?
Does
know.
that make sense?
Maybe
You
it's
know,
the
I
only
mean,
vehicle they had that could fit 5
maybe it
people.
was his cousins. I mean, because at
It
their
was his
age, to have a
dad's.
Winnebago, it's
It was
you
the
know,
Winnebago or Marty's Volvo, and Marty's Volvo is
Right.
always weed, so
well, yeah, I don't think it
Winnebago.
could fit. I mean, it kind of makes sense because they brought that motorcycle, which they end up using. But as far as those five getting together and going in a Winnebago,
Mm.
I thought that may play like I thought there may be some more. I don't know. I thought that may play into the plot more, but it
Hmm.
really didn't. Other than you see the motorcycle on the back of it, and I guess when they are going through the tunnel after they come back out, the little girl is in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna
Um,
say it'd be really hard to do that part without being a
Right.
Winnebago.
So, cutting forward here just a little bit, Dana and Holden try to roll out. He gets stabbed in the neck by the Buckner, who is still on the in the RV. Um, they crash, and cutting to Dana fighting with I forget which Buckner it is. It's one of the guys on the dock, and one of my favorite scenes is when it cuts back to the faculty facility. I'm sorry, and REO Speedwagon is playing, and everyone is having a great time.
Yep, yep.
I gotta say this
and
is this is one of the best fake out endings of any movie ever because I'm
Yes,
still sometimes convinced that it's the end of the movie
yes,
because it's so well done.
it is. It really is. And then
Well,
of
and if
course,
if you look, and maybe your first time through, you're not necessarily looking at it, but if you look at what that girl is going through while
Yes.
they're talking,
God.
it's
Yeah.
like, well, she's dead, and then
right?
Yeah.
she's not. It's like it's the whole bear trap to the back, and then I can run because there was at one point, and I had not noticed this until this viewing of it, but there's one of them is where I don't know what the guy has wrapped something around her neck, and she is literally vomiting a bunch of blood up. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, well, she's done, but no, she made it through that and looked really fresh for having gone through
Yeah.
that afterwards.
She's tough. That's all. She's
Yeah,
really
and it's
tough.
funny because earlier in the film, I forget their names. Bradley and Richard both comment on the fight she has and how they're sort of rooting for her in
Yeah.
their own weird way.
Yeah.
Well, the other question I would have about that, and maybe they've got some kind of drug to make this happen, but they were saying the virgin doesn't have to die
Mhm.
as long as she suffers, and she suffered. So if she didn't die and they all got out of this, what would they do with her? I mean, can they let her go? Do they offer her a
Oh,
job? I mean, what are your
Right.
options?
offer her a job.
Well, I think they'd just let her go and no one would believe her,
Right. Or
and
like
she
the
would just
town
be
sheriff rolls up and carts her
She'd end up
away.
in an
right.
insane asylum like everybody in a Lovecraft
Oh, yeah.
story. But I
Yeah.
you know what?
Mhm.
I actually I think, Alan, that's actually a pretty good idea that some of the people that are working in there are survivors of previous, storylines.
I
Right.
literally
Kinda
thought
cool.
of that for some
Be a
reason.
lot of virgins.
I
I
literally,
love
yeah, they're all. No, it's funny you
Yeah.
mentioned that. I literally that never occurred to me before until last night when I was rewatching the movie, and I was like, I almost wish that they had dropped some hints to that because that would make perfect sense. Maybe the Harbinger was that's why he's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they give you a job at the gas station if you make it through. But
He was
if
the final girl.
at
It's a living.
what point,
Yeah.
because and maybe not everybody, but at what point was your turning point where you sort of I don't know, started or stopped going for one side? Because there was a point where I'm watching the movie and it's like, okay, I want these guys to get out, but then there was a definite turning point where I was like, you know what, I want them all to die now. I'm going for the people in the facility. And for me personally, and I don't know why, it makes no sense, but it was when they blew up the the tunnel. Because when he was under there, I mean, it's like they're building that tension, and I'm like, come on, get it going. You need to blow that thing up because you have to kill them. And I
Yes.
realized
Oh, funny.
I want
Well,
them to
it's
die
true.
now. I'm going for the people in the facility.
That's
but I
interesting.
wasn't the whole movie. I mean, for a while, I was like, wow, you're sort of going for them to get out. And maybe I've just been, programmed to do that, because in every slasher movie, you sort of pick the one person you want to get out because there's going to be one. So okay, who do I want to get out? But at that point where they blew that thing up, at that point, yeah, I was completely, team government or whatever those people are.
I actually credit I entirely credit Richard Jenkins' performance in that scene, because it's a great, like, they've talked about the stakes the whole time, but they've all been kind of laid back and relaxed and joking. And for the first time, we see one of the characters express fear that this is
Right.
actually, they keep talking about, it's just us in Japan, and then when Japan fails, they're mad, but you don't really see that desperation until the moment that he thinks that they are actually going to escape, and his
Yeah.
performance in that is great.
It's funny because the only, how you sympathize with the character, you're like, oh man, I really didn't want that person to die. The only person I was, not sad when they died was, when the merman, he's like, oh come on, I get to see the merman and he's gonna kill me. I mean, that was the only sad death. It's like everybody else, they could just rip you apart, but it's like, this guy, because he was like, because when you switch back to the like I was talking about going for each side, when you switch back to that side, it's like, hey, I'm going to pick somebody, who do you want to live? And it's like, I want that guy to live. And he gets mermaned.
Right. When you think of it too, he's the guy who's got a wife at home or a girlfriend they're trying to have a baby together. It's like, oh, I guess that's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually had no sympathy for him because I figured they were honestly, I was like, I mean, I liked the characters, but I wasn't like rooting for them, because even though we can say, yes, they're trying to save the world, you sit there and go, but in the thousands of years that humanity has been doing this, instead of simply appeasing the gods, couldn't we have figured something else out?
Right.
And I guess the answer was no. But the thing was, I don't think the easy answer for them was to no, let's just keep and automate this horrible human sacrifice. And so therefore I had no sympathy for them.
I think I do wonder though, like, I almost feel like they were just as instrumental to the whole process as the people who were being sacrificed, right? Like, I almost feel, and this isn't actually like mentioned or inferred at all, so I'm just kind of like coming up with this, but I almost feel like a sacrifice requires a sacrificer, right? And so
Right.
I feel like maybe if they had tried to automate or anything, it's almost like part of the process is having the people who are actually doing the thing and pulling the lever, right? I don't know.
Right, they're the cultists.
Yeah,
What I'm saying
exactly.
is, I think they should have, my thought was, if we want to get into the morality of it, which is very silly.
Also, why are you trying to take their jobs away, Paul? Why are you trying to automate them out of a job?
I'm not talking about
Yeah.
automation. I'm talking about they need to, in the tens of thousands of years that humanity has been doing this, they should have figured out how to destroy the elder gods so we wouldn't have to do that.
The elder god with what?
Yeah,
With
good luck with
flint?
that.
Hey, I will say though, after
that's
watching
not my,
the movie,
hey,
there
that's
are
not
a
my
lot,
place to make
talking
that
about
decision.
jobs and job
Just an
creation.
idea,
There are
guys.
a lot of jobs available at that company.
My
it's got a high
my
turnover rate,
role
yeah.
is to point out other people's moral failings, not to try and fix it.
Wow.
You're the ideas
Oh my
kind of
God.
guy, right?
Mine is to sit up on my high horse and say they're morally wrong.
You've
They
ruined
should have
my
done
world
something about
building,
this.
Paul.
See, by the end of the movie, I've got no sympathy with anyone because I find the ending. And look, I wouldn't change the ending. I could see where a happy ending could have been found without necessarily having the characters turn on each other. That maybe the elder gods were happy with the suffering and sacrifice of the entire complex being destroyed by monsters. I mean, that's suffering aplenty. But
I would have
I
loved
think
for
that
this
would have
movie
been
to have been one of those where they film two endings and show them to you. I would have loved for when Dana. I would have loved for Dana to have shot Marty in the head and played that out as well.
Now, again, that would defeat the whole purpose. So
that's
The whole purpose of
as far as
what?
I feel.
Alan,
film.
this is that theme that he keeps threatening us with.
Yes. Well, I don't want to ruin it. Renee said to hold off. So we'll hold
I
off
know
on
we're
that
good.
Oh
I'm
my
so
Put
sorry.
it in
God.
there.
You know,
It's
you haven't
it's that
mentioned-
lure to keep you along, and then you'd be like, "What is it? What is it?" And they'll say, "Be nice to other people."
Yeah, this had better be the greatest theme ever.
Always wash your hands.
Always
I'm
wash
just
your
trying to
clean up your
Always
room.
drink your Ovaltine.
You know how they talk about
What's
the
the-
98
what's the-
incident? They talk about the incident in 98. You know what other movie came out in 98?
Mm.
Dave, Pig in the City. Eh?
Oh, which
Oh.
Just
which
saying.
is you know.
Huh?
Well, that's
Yeah,
obviously
George
the
Miller.
reference they're
Also-
making because
Yeah.
Josh Whedon really loved
What did you
bacon.
say?
So
Sorry.
Oh my god! All right, I'm gonna derail us.
You guys have heard about Chekhov's gun, right? How about
Yeah.
Chekhov's bong? Am I right?
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
great. I love that. Right there.
I love that shot because I think Bill asked, like, did we think he was dead? Like, yeah, the first time I saw this, I honestly, like, the way the movie was going and the way they were killing people off, I did not expect him to come back.
Yeah, because he was stabbed in the back and dragged into the pit. Yeah.
If you die off screen,
Well,
I
they
don't
show the
believe you're.
blood. They
I
show
just
the
don't
blood.
believe you're dead. I think Amelia Earhart's
Technically-
still alive until
Even
someone
if he had a knife in the back. But yeah, oh yeah, the way he uses that bong was like there, and
Yeah.
actually earlier on when he first has the bong,
Yes.
and he said wasn't like I think the line something like, "Police will not stop a man with a massive bong in his car. They
Yeah.
fear this man."
Yes.
Apparently it was a fully functional bong and fully functional mug, and cost
Yeah.
about $5,000 to make.
Oh
So,
my god.
you gotta
Wow.
be kidding me, really?
I wonder who
Yeah,
has
well, I
that
mean,
now.
custom
Well, they
made.
actually were
so
making
absolutely.
some.
Expandable mug.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you let drug users be engineers.
I did read that Fran Kranz actually did a quote unquote research and hung out with a bunch of like stoners, and I'm not making this up. I actually did read this, whether or not it's true. I think it was on IMDb, which is all bullshit now, but I do like the idea of him doing like research and just like hanging out like to learn like the lingo, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I also like to believe that he just took that bong home at the end of the day
Yeah,
after
right.
filming.
yes. There was a
It's-
company that
it's like
made
in
them,
his
but they
living
don't
room.
make them anymore.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Were they $5,000?
No, they were like 100 and some.
See,
Ah,
yeah.
If only this movie had been more successful.
Yeah.
I know. So yeah, Marty saves the day with his magical mug bong, and
Oh.
they go to the elevator, which is where things start getting exciting.
By the way,
running
I
into
do
some
like that they say
monsters,
it's a
yeah.
fully functional mug, as though that's a triumph of engineering. I mean,
Well,
you could
let's put it this
carve
way,
a mug out of
Bill.
a stick.
Bill, you don't
Yeah.
want to mix up the mug, the where you're drinking out of, and the bong water. Not a good idea. So they can keep them separate. That's great.
A mug is like the simplest thing in the world, and a bong is only slightly more complex. Very
But when
slightly.
you combine the two,
Yeah, okay. Well, it's like it's the spork of great inventions. It's not really
well, when you combine the two, you're drinking bong water, aren't you?
that's what I said. That's the whole
Right.
point. You design it so you keep the bong water separate.
I
and
mean, it's
doesn't
like let's
spill.
combine a toilet and a drinking cup. That's
Apparently-
a good idea.
that's a $5,000 puzzle to fix. Yeah.
Hey, you know they talked about the 98 incident, right? You know what
Yeah.
other movie came out in 98?
Oh Jesus, what?
Spice World.
Oh shit! That was it.
The
That's
saying.
in my head
That's
canon
the
now.
Yeah.
Oh
That
man,
is the one.
that's
Oh
it.
my
No,
God.
you're
Ended
not
it
convincing
all.
me anything else otherwise.
So
Yes.
I've got to say, as much as I love the rest of this film, I feel like this is when the film goes from great to absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is the sort of movie where even though I could watch it over and over and over again, I feel like I could watch this last 20 minutes an infinite
Yes.
number of times and never get tired of it.
Yeah.
As soon as the elevator doors open, it ascends to greatness.
It does.
Or
and I
descends
know
to greatness.
Normally when you're watching a movie, you're not trying to see, oh gosh, how much longer is it? Because I gotta finish this movie so I can talk about it on a podcast tonight. But I was doing that, and when it got to the end, because I remember the plot, and when it got to that point where basically everything had been revealed, I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 20 more minutes of this movie, and it is though. It's a great 20 minutes,
Yes.
but you don't realize it. And if you look back at this movie and you explain to anybody like all the stuff that happened, because I remembered all this stuff happening. I remember when I called it up today. It's like this is only like 90 minutes, because they really do pack like 2.5 hours into 90 minutes. A lot of stuff happens. But I think it's because they don't spend so much time on one thing. Like, they don't walk down a dark corridor for 10 minutes of the movie and then get killed.
yeah.
There's not a lot
There's
of
no
wasted
filler.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And say like the thing about Joss Whedon too, like regardless of whether or not you like the style in which he writes dialogue, like he is a great writer, and he had been working before he kind of made it big in TV and before he did Buffy and stuff. I mean, he was like a highly sought after script doctor because he wrote he was the co-writer on Toy Story. He was often brought in on films. He's famously, he was brought in on Waterworld and X-Men to try to punch the scripts up. But say what you will, though. I mean, like this film is actually it's amazingly well plotted when you consider there are essentially two different movies happening simultaneously, and they fit together so well.
And that they wrote it in 3 days, which is
supposedly,
which is both inspiring and discouraging, because I know 3 days from now I will not have a Cabin in the Woods script type done.
Yeah, but okay, when you say you wrote something in 3 days, I mean, surely there's got to be like hours of rewrites, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I mean, I think you could write The Man with Two Hands in 3 days. If
Probably.
I see the challenge.
I think you probably have to
If I put my nose to the grindstone, yeah.
Actually, I think everyone should write a short story about The Man with Two Hands, and I will judge.
Oh my God.
All right. Homework.
All right, so we're back to the elevator.
We're in the elevator, yes, and we start moving around, and we see some amazing characters. The werewolf, the ghost wraith, if you will, the sugar plum fairy, and Fornicus.
Now, the Sugar Plum Fairy is near and dear to my heart because there's a wonderful cosplayer and really, really cool person locally, Allie Blackman, and she does a spot-on perfect cosplay of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I went to a comic book convention and saw her performing it. Oh, it's amazing. And of course, a crowd around her, because she does the ballet, she's got the motion, everything. She just perfect. And then years later, I met her, and it turned out, and I realized I had met her before, but of course I didn't recognize her because it was just.
Is this the only film that character shows up in?
Yep.
Yeah.
I swear I thought I'd seen it somewhere else, but I think you're right. I think it might have been her too. I think I might have seen somebody cosplaying it.
Yeah, she's the best.
Because it doesn't. It looks almost like a. What's that? Like I don't know, like a Silent Hill type of character.
It does, yeah.
Something, yeah.
But I think what's kind of great about like a lot of these, some of these monsters are very clearly patterned after specific things. But even the ones that aren't look like something that reminds you of something else.
Yeah, like that clunky robot that's like going down the stairs reminds me of the movie Hardware, which like nobody knows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
There you go.
It's like a scorpion type of thing.
It's
a scorpion.
Actually, reminds me of I don't know if anyone's played Half-Life, but there are like worker bots that look kind of similar to that.
If you gave the military $1 billion and said, make us a killer robot, well, what kind of killer robot? Just make it so it could kill anyone. It's like, okay, or just add things to it. It's going to have a hard time walking, but it can definitely kill you.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how the ghost or the wraith or whatever it was actually killing people, because it seems like it would go through you. Maybe it could, I don't know. Knock
it looked like it
something
could
off
like
the top of you.
materialize because it was like hanging on the wall.
Well, what's great is
Oh no! I was just gonna say, speaking of Half-Life, there is actually I believe a cameo in that scene from a character from another Valve game, Left 4 Dead 2, which apparently there was going to be like a crossover, and they were going to produce content for the game, but then the movie got delayed, and they canceled that. But I guess there's a boomer in there from Left 4 Dead. So
I didn't realize that. Yeah,
kind of cool.
One of the things I think I was just going to say about it was Bill mentioned how well plotted it is. A lot of those things aren't just arbitrary things. They tie back to the board. They tie back to the things people said. They tie back, like we said, to individual props in the basement that, again, you go back the first time you see it, they just seem like random props.
Yeah.
But by the time you go again, you're like, oh, it's that. I mean, and so everything's really nicely tied together.
Yeah. You watching it the second or third time, you see that. Yeah.
About that, when they were in the elevator and stuff, like I got the idea that there were a lot of these things that looked like they were influenced from the past, and now that we're 10 years later, you can sort of see some things that were influenced by this. There was what do you call the guy with the little puzzle?
Oh, the
Um,
Fornicus, yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously that looks like something from Hellraiser. I mean,
Sure.
that's,
Right.
I thought Hellraiser when I saw that, but
Yeah.
those guys with the masks on, where they just kind of walked out, it was a family. That made
the
me think
dolls.
of, like well, and there's other movies like, but The Strangers and The Purge.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm,
they were masked just like that. So it's kind of interesting to see that it looks like some previous movies influenced a lot of the monsters, and some of these have probably influenced some movies since then.
I think they do actually mention that there are, they do specifically bring out like the alien beast is inspired by, the alien
Oh,
little
Yeah.
squishy
and
guy.
obviously the twins are
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Shining. I mean,
Yeah.
they're two little
Right.
girls like holding hands. It's like, yeah, that's got to be and
Right.
maybe it's supposed to be the twins from The Shining.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe they
highly
captured
possible. Yeah. And then they, mention there are just some generic, like, giant tarantula or things like that, just from the
the one I didn't see is there was one on the board called the Giant. Did anybody see that character?
I don't remember, but there's a shot of him in I think a behind the scenes thing I saw. I could probably find it
Oh.
and send it to you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, because I like Paul, I will not go look it up.
No, you look it up. There's a big difference.
It's the
There's a
Amazing
big difference if
Michael
it's
Mann.
put in
Yeah.
there. Well, one of the nice things is there's so much in there that you
I'm
missed
sorry.
it.
You mean there actually was a giant? They're not something that somebody like a
Well,
backstory.
there's a giant is a giant. There's a difference between that and something called Kevin. But anyway,
Yeah, but he could have been a weird giant. He could
Well,
have
I
been a
said-
giant with two hands.
what I like
Yeah.
is there's so much going on that you're looking at it, especially the first time you see it. There is more stuff there, and
Yeah.
it. And even if you watch it 2 or 3 times, and even if you like try and stop and pause it, there's so much stuff there that's the kind of stuff that really expands that world, expands
Mhm.
that. Because everything on the board isn't everything they had. Because he's like, that's just what
Right.
people had bet on. So it's kind of cool. Like when they're one thing actually I was thinking also when they're going through the elevator, and that's when you first see that just the sheer number of monsters and creatures. It's like literally being on a haunted house ride because they're moving along and you're seeing another one and they're moving along and seeing another one, which I thought that was really kind of fun too. That it was like you're literally on a haunted house ride at that point, haunted house.
And I am trying to remember, did any of the monsters attack each other?
It's a
I don't
great
think so.
question.
No.
I don't think they did.
No.
There was so much at the point where all the monsters were coming out. There are so many people for them to attack, and so many things are flying around. Because I really wanted to see if any of the monsters attacked each other.
No, I don't
And
think they did.
I don't remember it happening. And even if it did, there were definitely like groups of monsters that did not seem to have interest in attacking each other.
Yeah.
I think they
And there was
almost
a
seemed
scene-
oblivious to each other.
Yeah, there was a
Right.
scene that was almost like teamwork though, when a dude like threw a guy over the balcony and the lizard or the snake
Yeah.
caught it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was nice team building.
They've been raised to hate humans, not to fight each
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so things are getting kind of crazy. And at this point, Marty and Dana have gotten into the elevator and decide to purge the system, which we've talked about. Of course,
I
at
will-
this point, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I will say that this feels like the moment when this film becomes. I mean, it's spent a lot of the prior hour or so has been kind of almost not lampooning, but kind of skewering, the traditional horror tropes, and it feels like this is when it becomes a full on just love letter to horror fans because
yeah.
it's just this is like one of maybe one of 20 moments in any horror film ever.
Yeah.
That great moment. It's so well edited where the guards are just standing there and then you hear the ding and then I think one of them says like shit or something and then you get
Yeah.
that wide shot of just all the doors opening.
They're
It's
just destroyed. And
Yeah.
this is
amazing.
for a monster movie fan, which I certainly
Yeah.
was, and I have been all my life. When I was a kid, there was a show called Lost in Space, and the best episode they ever had was about this alien called the Keeper, played by Michael Rennie from Day the Earth Stood Still, and he has a spaceship full of monsters. It's like a zoo. And at the end of the episode, Dr. Smith, because he's an idiot, somehow presses the button that we always have in these things. They have it here too. The button that just like, why would you put that there? It lets everything loose. There's no reason why that button should exist, but it's there. It's like the lever in Bride of Frankenstein that blows everything up. And all the monsters come walking out of the spaceship, and that was the end of that episode. It was a two-parter, and man, I could not wait a week to find out, because they just showed all these monsters. They took every costume they used in the show up to that point and just had them walking out over and over again, like 100 times. It was great, and that's what this reminds me of. This is destroy all monsters. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if all the monsters? Yeah, this is it. This is probably the closest we'll ever have to a real monster mash. And I don't think anyone else will ever be able to do it, because you're like, how could that even happen? What premise would work where all the monsters come together? Well, here you go. Here's how it works. Can't be done.
And people talk about movies like Halloween or whatever. Pick your movie that was, okay, this was the invention of the slasher genre or subgenre, and everybody remembers Halloween. Is there another movie out there like this one
that kind of subverts I mean, you could argue that the Scream movies kind of
not necessarily.
I think this is definitely a logical extension of the Scream films.
Yeah.
No, okay, yeah, and not even that, but I mean sort of like not even in the same vein, because I see what you're saying about Scream, because Scream definitely fits that category, but like it's like a breakout movie in a subgenre of horror, like slasher or this, or Scream. Scream was great. It's like, oh my God, 2 killers. You can't have 2 killers. That was like it was like the first time that happens. I mean,
I actually, I was actually thinking about this. Sorry to cut in, but I have input, because I was thinking about this earlier, and I think that in terms of like meta horror, I actually think that this is closer to Wes Craven's New Nightmare than Scream, because it's actually explaining the existence of real evil or whatever, right? And it's taking something that you've seen in movies 100 times, and it's saying no, this actually exists, and this is why.
Okay, yeah. Interesting, yeah.
But yeah, in terms of,
I was asking more for my personal benefit of what I should watch than
I don't think that there is anything else like this, and I think it's for the very reason that we've been talking about. This is a film that's beloved by horror fans, but when the new Halloween movie makes $150 million, it's not because horror fans are going to see it. It's because the general audience is going to see it, right? So a film like this that doesn't really, I think if anything, I could imagine that there are probably more like novels or stuff like that that's more similar to this, right?
I'll bet that's true.
I mean, because I would almost like in the category, like, I mean, you can put Halloween if, I'd seen 10 slasher movies before I saw Halloween. So it's not like that came along and it's like, wow, there's this, this slasher genre. But I mean, I would, I would put Scream in that category. I would probably even put, at least for me, the Purge in that category. When that came out, I had never seen a movie like about that. I mean, it's not that, we've seen a lot of movies where, people go around and get killed or whatever, but I don't know. There's just something about that movie. It's like, I haven't seen this before, when that comes out. And Scream, I mean, I had not, that was sort of a new concept.
I think has anyone seen Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon?
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of fits into the same category too. Actually, I think
we're getting close to talking about the theme.
Oh,
my God.
Being nice
Are we
to each
almost
other.
there?
No, and I think there's a lot that ties into the reason they do that. But Renee, do you want to get back to?
Yeah, because we're getting pretty close.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think when they cut down the cast and when they've killed they've killed off a couple other people, I think that this is also when I start really liking Kristen Connolly. And I think that her, like in the end, like her and Marty are actually some of the best scenes. And I really appreciate, I almost wish that either the cat, I mean, obviously, they had as many people as they needed or as they had because of the reasons that the facility had. But I don't know. I almost wish that I would have watched just a movie about like those two characters, because I don't know, for some reason when she gets rescued and they're starting to like realize what's going on, she was good in the rest of the movie, but for some reason that's when her performance like really clicks for me.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I heard everything you said except where you said that started.
Oh, just at this part, once it's basically just her and Marty, and they've dispensed with all the other characters, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
basically just them trying to survive. And
Yeah.
probably also because she has that turn where she goes from being a victim to being more badass and being like, yeah, fuck these people. When they smash the button to open up the elevators. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for Hadley, Mr. Bradley Whitford, he gets to see a merman.
Yeah.
I love the callback because I think when they're talking about the merman earlier, don't they say something about like, oh yeah, we had one of those that one time, and the cleanup was just terrible, and then they and then they show basically when you get eaten by them, you just get like pureed out the blowhole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually
No,
saw
there was
some.
right around that the same time when the other character, I forget his name, when he finally dies. I had to rewatch it today to hear his last words twice. I couldn't tell if he had said, because at that point I thought maybe he had sort of turned to the other side, because I thought he said kill it and then died. But I rewatched it and no, he really did.
Oh.
He said kill him, talking about Marty.
Right.
So I was like, did he say kill it? Talking about like the gods or whatever. But no, he
Yeah.
was still. I watched it again and I was like, okay, he did say kill him.
Yes, which also interesting about that scene is Dana sort of seems to pick. She's like, "What is he talking about?" Whereas poor Marty is just like, "He must be talking about someone else. Let's go. Here, hold my gun." So it's just interesting the interpretation of that line. So at this point, just
Well,
like you said,
it's almost like he expected her to know what he was talking about. It's like, why
Yeah.
would I kill him? I mean, it makes no
Right.
sense at that point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So yes, they get to that point, then all the next thing you know, they're in the chamber, and Sigourney Weaver shows up.
I will say I do remember very distinctly when I first watched this movie, and you actually, because she talks to them,
Yes.
she's on the intercom before you see her, and as soon as she came on, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, because it's funny because this film doesn't really have any, for a film that's all about horror and horror tropes, it doesn't go in on the like doing a bunch of cameos or anything, which I kind of appreciate, except for her. I mean,
Yeah.
I love her. I'm just saying, yeah, that's the only cameo they have.
Yeah. But it's great, right? Because aside from
Yes.
her voice that you heard, you don't even know she's there until literally the very end of the movie.
I wouldn't even call this a cameo. I mean, this is a part. I mean, she didn't just breeze through. I mean, she was in a whole
Sigourney
scene.
Weaver never breezes through anything.
Oh, no.
but no, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's more than a cameo, but it's a bit part. It is a pivotal role, obviously, but yeah.
Who can we get for one day that everybody knows?
Mhm.
But I think it works
Sigourney
too
Weaver.
because she does. I mean, she has that presence and she has that authority, and I would definitely buy her as kind of at the top of this organization that's keeping the world safe, but in doing so, killing people
Mhm.
every year, sacrificing them.
Well, and she essentially does convince Dana that to kill Marty. She was about to actually kill Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she did her job.
did
Right.
did Paul? Did you say the theme yet, or is this where you tell us what it is?
I
I was
think that
waiting
all
for
ties
Renee to let
back
us
into-
say the
Oh,
theme.
okay.
I know. I'm gonna
I
hold.
figured
I'm
we were going to go
thinking
through the
around
plot and then talk
like
about the theme.
9:45 would be a good time. No, I'm just kidding.
My
Oh,
question,
God.
my question to you guys is, and I think we kind of touched on this actually at the very beginning, but if you had the gun, what would you do?
I would have shot Marty.
I mean, I would have shot Marty.
Oh yeah, I would have shot Marty.
Have
Oh,
to
we
I mean,
talked
she
about
was going
Jen,
to.
I would've shot Marty.
Surprised that Paul
Or
would have
actually,
shot
sorry. Let me ask another question because obviously you're all a bunch of maniacs.
Uh-huh.
If you were Marty, what would you have done?
Thank
I
you.
would have rushed her and pushed her down into the pit.
Something, right?
I
Let the
would have
werewolf eat her up.
shot myself and gone out a hero. I would have been the greatest hero who ever lived, even though nobody would know it. I would have saved 8 billion lives.
To me, it wasn't even about whether or not you could convince her to shoot Marty. It was more about, can you convince her that all of this is real?
Yes.
And
That's what I'm
it's kind
saying.
of
Yeah,
weird.
like
But the thing is I think most people were almost surprised. Wow, I can't believe you didn't shoot him after everything you've just been through. Because surely you
she was-
have been convinced that
Yeah.
this is true. and
She was
still
about to.
didn't.
Well, she was about to till she got attacked by the werewolf.
Right.
And then she even says, "I'm sorry, I almost shot you."
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that's actually one of my only problem with this scene is giving her the option of shooting him and saving the world or not, and condemning the world. The only problem I have with that is, yeah, like, okay, they've gone through all this stuff. Obviously, they've seen all these things, but there's nothing. Basically, Sigourney, the director is connecting the dots for them, but then that you have to assume that she actually believes what she's saying, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Which
all the stuff that she's seen. I mean, it's at that point, it's like, well, it's a lot easier to believe that once you've seen things like Fornicus and the Wraith and the murder, and you can hear the rumblings of the thing down below. In fact, don't they even look over the edge? I thought at one point
they look over the edge and they see
Yeah, it just
something.
looks,
right. So I'm
Yeah.
saying that.
to me, it just looked like a pit.
Well, but we didn't see what they saw.
They see like
so-
a writhing mass or something in there. I
Yeah.
think.
So I mean, I didn't find it too hard to believe that she thought she saw that, believed it. But anyway,
Fair enough.
Well,
Yeah.
Patience Buckner rolls in to save the day.
Yeah,
It's,
she's the real hero of the movie.
She is the
There you
real
go.
hero of the
Or
movie.
is she the real villain?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
well, if you're rooting for the
Yeah, which
So
I'll
he-
actually brings up another question, which is this movie pro marijuana or anti marijuana? I can't decide.
It's
Hmm.
true.
Technically, that is what really doomed the world, right?
Well, as a non-marijuana smoker, I mean, can anybody smoke that much marijuana in that amount of time? Because there wasn't really a scene where he wasn't. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. He's a professional for
The
sure.
answer is
Yeah, I
yes.
was gonna say, does anyone want to officially answer that question?
What?
I think somehow that ties into the theme.
Like, what if my boss listens to this? No,
Oh, yeah.
just
Well,
kidding.
Hey,
I was
one more hit.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what
what else are
Marty
you gonna do
said.
before the world ends?
That's what Marty said.
Spark it
Oh,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Paul, you want to talk about the themes?
Yes, I
Ooh.
think. Which I mean, it's not anything genius by me because it's pretty much been stated by Joss Whedon and
better
and,
be
Drew
genius. We've
Goddard.
been waiting this long.
No, I mean, so part of it is, a lot of the film
You
is
love it.
subverting expectations. But what they actually even said is they called it a love-hate letter or hate-love letter to horror. They
Mhm.
loved horror, but they hated what it had become. There had been
Mhm.
a lot of things like torture porn. It had just become just mired in these tropes, and even with screams and all the sort of meta horror that came after that, that itself became a trope. And so they were tired of that and sick of that, and so they wanted to tear that up, and they wanted to, much like The Last Jedi, tear it down and destroy it and save the stuff they love to save the genre they love. So the whole idea is tearing down these tropes, saying, look at this is garbage, but we love this. And kind of, so it's that whole love and hate of we must destroy it. But in the same process, the film itself is sort of a have it cake and eat it too. Boy, look at this torture porn, and the gratuitous gore just for gore is kind of dumb. Oh, but look, the last 20 minutes is just this amazing gore fest. Which in
Right.
that case, it reminds me a lot of Funny Games. I don't know if you've ever seen
Oh
Funny
God,
Games, either
yes, yes.
the original or the remake, which is very
Both.
much.
They remade that?
The director remade it in English. It was originally So
Oh, then I must have seen the remake.
yeah, but he
because
made
I
it
didn't
shot
see
for
it.
shot, is my understanding.
It's
But the thing
virtually the
is,
same movie. It's baffling.
yeah, and well, I think part of that was again his point, which is he was condemning this like excessive screen violence where people are so removed from it, and so he wants to bring people in, but then the film itself is excessively violent. So it's
Yeah, blah
have your
blah
cake.
blah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I'm not the one. I'm just saying this is what it is.
No,
It's
no, I
have your cake
totally get that.
and eat
But
it too
listen,
moment.
I've never bought
Yeah.
that bullshit. It's like my favorite is Cannibal Holocaust because I love that movie and I defend it every opportunity I can because it's indefensible.
Is that the one that reminded me of my childhood?
Yes, it is.
And
Okay.
the thing, the Cannibal Holocaust has the best thing after reveling and bathing in gore and
Yes.
gratuitous rapey violence, decapitation, castration, all this horrible stuff, things you've never seen before, so awful that the filmmakers are almost put in jail because people thought they really killed someone. At the end of the movie, the main character has the balls to like walk out and with disgust kind of look at the camera and say, sometimes I wonder who the real cannibals are. And there's your social value and everything. It's like, wow, makes you think. Doesn't make me think anything at all. This is just like when Russ Meyer was making his softcore porn films and then would stick in like 10 minutes at the end of all this social value and statements and everything to justify, because now it's got redeeming social value. It's like, okay,
I disagree
whatever.
completely, because if you watch this film, all throughout the film, they are subverting the tropes. They are.
Oh no, I agree. I agree
so
with that.
it's not like Cannibal Holocaust at all. I mean, if Cannibal Holocaust was, well, anyway, the the whole point of the film is, gosh, we love horror. We love these things about it, but it's become rote. It's become the same thing. We want to tear it down and we want to see something new, and not just new because it's meta making fun of something old. We want something completely new. And so the question is, even though the film wasn't successful financially, was it successful in that? I mean, what kind of films have we seen in the past 10 years that were horror?
I get what they're trying to do, but you know, there's a part of me that's just like, it's like, hey, gratuitous nudity is ridiculous. And to prove that point, here's Anna Hutchinson with her top off.
Well, that's how do you that's why I said it's the have your cake and eat it too. But again, it's also the condemnation of the audience while still titillating them, because he says, "Oh, you're not the only one watching." You know, which in the context of the movie means, oh, the elder gods are watching, but it also means the audience is watching, and we're doing this because if we didn't have those boobs in the movie, then people would be like, where were boobs in my horror movie? You know? I mean,
we've dealt with that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that is there, and I think that's part of that whole theme. And again, that's why, especially that part is what reminded me of Funny Games, which is like, look, we're put this in here because of you. You're demanding this, aren't you terrible? But we're the ones putting it in.
I was not a big fan.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things I love about this movie is when people don't like it. It just kind of tickles me because I'm like, oh, you just don't get it. Like, just don't get it. It's a little
I honestly think that's why they don't like it. They didn't.
I haven't met anybody that didn't like this movie. I mean, okay.
Oh, I have.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't like horror, but I mean, have you met somebody that likes horror that didn't like this movie?
Insane. I've not personally met anybody, but I was noticing some reviews when I was looking around, and it really surprised me.
I don't know that the people I've heard dislike it are big horror fans, but okay. So I'd say when some of my students ask, you know, what's a good horror movie? You're a big horror movie fan. I mentioned Cabin in the Woods, and a lot of them are like, nah, that was stupid. So I think they just didn't get it. Because it ain't stupid. Whatever, you know, whatever you say about it, stupid is not the word to use.
Right. Some people would refer to it as more of an intellectual movie, which, you know, I don't want to insult anybody when I say, you know, maybe you don't get it.
But I don't know, to call this movie stupid and to say that you like horror movies, it's like Renee says, you just didn't get it. I mean, and there's not really a whole lot you need to get. It's like, if you like horror movies and you don't like this one, it's like, you know, what are you talking? It's like, I've never seen a slasher movie. We'll watch Friday the 13th or Halloween. I didn't like it. Well, I mean, do you really like horror? Because,
well, I think people.
I understand that. You know, I understand that. You know, Jason X. You know, you've seen the other 9, and it's like, you know, whatever. But if you've never seen anything like this, and I don't think anybody. I mean, there really hasn't been a movie like this. It's like, well, you know, what did you not like about this? I mean, did you?
No, I think I know. I think I know what it is. I think for a lot of them, they were so confused by the back and forth when they go to the office scenes. They just tuned out because they didn't get it. They were confused and they tuned out. And if you tune out, then it's just a bunch of, you know, middle-aged guys jabberjawing with each other about stuff that has nothing to do with what you thought this movie was, and you're not listening, and so you're not getting drawn into it. And then when the movie lurches to the point where that stuff is it's all about, you're just not engaged enough to appreciate the big payoff. You know, it's like someone not listening to the intro of a joke and then when you get to the punchline, I don't get it. Well, if you'd listened to what everything was going up there, you'd get the punchline, but now you don't get
And
it.
those scenes, it's like, I mean, they're so perfectly timed. I mean, they don't go on for too long. I get what you're saying. I could agree with what you're saying if those scenes went on for too long. It reminds me of my mom. My mom used to always, we would watch these made for TV movies, and for some reason, 15 minutes before it was over, she'd be like, "I'm going to bed. Let me know what happens tomorrow." And it's like, come on, you watched an hour and 45 minutes of this, through
How do you
commercials,
do
because
that?
this was, the early 80s. And let me tell you, there were lots of times she'd be like, "So what happened to that movie?" And I told her, she's like, "Really? He was, he was the villain." It's like, yeah, you should have watched the last 15 minutes.
You should have just made stuff up. You just did.
Then the aliens came down. And...
Yeah. Oh my God, Mom, you missed it. He had 2 hands.
Oh, speaking of great payoff.
Yeah.
There
I
you
was
go.
I was kind of surprised when I went to the IMDb page, and it does have a 7, which it's, I mean, it's, it's a decently high score, but at the same time, very often you see kind of cult classic films with around an 8 or something. And I was looking at the reviews, and yeah, it just seems like there are a lot of people that had no idea what the movie was supposed to be, or like you said, Bill, I wonder if people, I feel weird saying that, yeah, people just don't get it, because to me it's not the sort of film that really requires any analysis or thought, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just it's not like, oh, if you don't understand the symbolism, like, no, it's very straightforward.
It's not possession.
If you're talking about this is not a 7.0 from, people where you make a movie and you've got 10 people that hate you and they can bring your number down. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people that have, rated this movie.
375,000 people rated this movie.
Yeah, and it's
the most popular one. I was thinking maybe a bunch of the ones there. It's actually a perfect bell-shaped curve, and the most popular number is 7. 25% of the people rated 7. Fully half of the people who rated this movie rated it at a 7 or below, which is crazy. That curve needs to be nudged up quite a bit.
And I could get that number too if it had if it was mainstream, more main. If it had done better, a lot of people may have gone to see this movie that didn't like horror movies, and they're like, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case here.
I wonder if some of the people didn't like the ending, in terms of just because of the whole subverting expectations. I mean, even get to the ending and you're like, oh, well, they're going to save it in the end, because, you can't destroy the whole world. And they destroy the whole world. And even the people who are like, it's okay, destroy the whole world. The Elder Gods, cool, we're going to see some Lovecraft stuff. Wait, it's a hand? It's not a tentacle. So, I mean, even like that kind of stuff, I wonder if he had people who were just so disappointed because they were like, oh, he's going to save the day at this, or, he's going to accidentally die and that'll save it. I mean, I wonder if part of it was just that people not wanting the ending to God.
I think
I
maybe
didn't
right.
like the ending in that. I didn't like the ending in that aspect of it. However, I like that the ending is at least deterministic. It's not like what happened.
Right.
I fully
Inception.
accept.
Right.
Yeah. I fully accept and understand the ending.
Right.
I would
Exactly.
like a different ending, and I can't tell you what I want the ending to be.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? I just want to say I think Paul is 100% on the mark, and here's my evidence. Just on a whim, I decided to click on The Mist. The Mist has a 7.1 rating. It's also a bell-shaped curve where the largest one is right at a 7. If you give a downbeat ending, and I think, I'm not speaking out of school here, most of us would agree that The Mist is not the happy-go-lucky ending that a lot you might have been hoping for.
Oh man, what a great ending!
That's interesting.
That's completely different. I mean, what would you expect the ending to be here? There's only 2 possibilities.
Right, but what Bill's saying is like,
Do you know the highest rated film on the IMDb is?
The Room?
No, it's actually another Frank Darabont film. It's The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah,
which does have an upbeat ending.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, but yeah, The Mist. We'll have to talk about that one someday.
Yes, definitely.
I love that. That's like that was the best kick in the nuts I ever got.
Oh, my wife gave me 30 looks all the way home that I inflicted.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, it's hard obviously to see things, the way that other people do. I love a movie where everyone's dead in the end. Like that's it.
Yes.
Everyone's dead.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah, right? And
Well, you know
so
what? You
I
should watch a
loved
lot of
it.
movies. You should watch a lot of movies from the 1930s and 40s because everyone who was in that movie is dead.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I would much rather not like the ending than have no idea what happened. I hate having to
Yes,
go online
I
and
agree.
say what happened in the end
What
of,
did that
pick-
mean?
Lord, yeah.
Again, that's the thing. You don't have to go and look up a or an explains
YouTube
video,
video.
or someone's thesis on what the film represented. Like it's a very straightforward film. I don't know.
I was just have you noticed how often it is back when movies did come out in theaters that immediately there would be an article on the internet the next day. What did the ending to
Yes.
blank 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 mean? And I'm thinking, man, if I'm a studio executive and that article is getting any hits whatsoever, I am firing the people who made that movie, and they never get to make a movie again.
But they come out about everything now, though. That's the funny thing.
Oh,
They used to-
What did the ending of Wonder Woman 1984 mean?
I
It's like,
saw
well, it means
that.
you're
No,
an
I actually
idiot.
saw that
Yeah,
one come up.
you're an
I'm like,
idiot that you looked up this article. That's what it means. Be ashamed of yourself.
What did the ending of Big Mama's House mean? Since we've been dunking on other people's ratings, do we want to get into our own ratings?
Yeah.
Sure.
Normally we talk about franchise and legacy, but I there's no franchise and probably no legacy.
Well, I don't know. Legacy wise, actually, I do bring up the question. I think it was a stated goal of theirs that they wanted to kind of just tear down horror because they were sick of what was there and wanted to see something new. And the question is, I mean, I think we have seen a lot of new films in the past 8 years, a lot of things we hadn't seen before. A lot of art house horror, but I don't think they actually influenced it.
Yeah,
I think it was. Okay.
No, I'd love to say Cabin in the Woods influenced a lot of the great movies we've seen, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think maybe but it might be that the time was right. That there was a lot of people who were getting tired of basically the same old shit. That's why. And so I think it was just the right time. But I don't think they directly led to like Hereditary, anything like that. So
I think also remember that this movie was released 2 years later than it was actually shot, and I think that it's kind of I don't know. I kind of wonder if things would have been different if it had actually come out like when it was originally planned to, because when you think of the torture porn stuff and all this stuff in like the mid 2000s, like obviously we've moved past that, and a lot of stuff has happened since then. I think what was it, like late 2000s when Blumhouse really started getting going, and I think Paranormal Activity came out, I think in like 2009 or something, and that was really was what really swung things, I think, to a different type of horror subgenre. And I don't know. I think that if this film had come out maybe a little bit earlier and been a little more successful and hadn't gotten lost in the shuffle, maybe it would have had a little more influence, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like I said,
did you have info on like why did it sit for 2 years?
It was because of MGM, because they were going to release it, but MGM I think was going bankrupt at that time. I think it was also why. Like I said, I think the Hobbit films got delayed. I think maybe one of the James Bond films got delayed. But yeah, it was basically them just not being able to release it because they didn't have any money.
So yeah, ratings. Who wants to go first?
I'd actually like to go first because I have one other thing that I wanted to mention that I just realized. They talk about the incident in 1998. You know what other film came out in 1998? No, wait, this is a real one. Because I want to believe this one is real. Deep Rising, starring Treat Williams, which is a phenomenal film that no one's seen. Movie. And if you watch at the end of that movie, they get away from the monster, and then they tease there being another monster on the island. So that kind of fits in with the theme of this movie. Yeah. So anyways, so that's my new canon. It was Deep Rising was part of the Cabin in the Woods universe.
I like it.
Yeah,
there was that tentacle that grabbed.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
Amy, what are yeah, and that was it. That was the
Yeah.
Deep Rising.
Yeah, exactly. Amy Acker gets
Yeah.
caught by the tentacle. Yeah, I think. Yeah, this is a tough one because I think this is one of those movies where there are parts of it, and by parts of it, I mean like the last 20 minutes, which I like. If the whole film was that, or if this was a short film that was just that, it would probably be like one of my top 5 films of all time. I like the entire film. Like I said, there are some things that don't necessarily click for me, but I think overall, it does succeed in what it sets out to do, which is kind of not just subverting the horror genre, but doing something genuinely different. Like it doesn't just try to have a clever twist at the end where the writers want you to, applaud and how clever they are at being able to fool you. So yeah, I think this is, I don't know, this is kind of hard for me to rate, but I'm gonna have to go with 4 VHS tapes on this one because it's yeah, it's so well made. It's well acted for the most part. It's well written. I think one of the problems that horror films often have is there are a lot of the technical aspects are not necessarily so well done. But this one, I mean, it's edited, it's shot, the music's great, everything about it is great. So yeah, I'm gonna say 4 out of 5.
You want to go? Yeah.
Sure. Let's see. So we're doing 4. We're doing out of 5. I'm gonna give it Cabin in the Woods. I'm probably gonna give it a 4.5. 4.5 out of 5. There's very little. There's really not much I don't totally enjoy about this movie, and it's one of the best monster movies ever made. And I love monster movies, and this is just got it there. It's clever, it's smart, it's got some funny bits in it. If you like Joss Whedon, and again, there was a time when we all did. And again, okay, I mean the guy. Listen, I wouldn't want necessarily anyone I care about to work with him. There seems to be some toxic qualities involved in everything. But that we shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. He gave us Buffy, he gave us Angel, Firefly. The guy had the Midas touch. Avengers is a great movie. I love Avengers: Age of Ultron. Even he showed us that superhero movies, how big they can go and still be entertaining. Maybe there's a way out of the woods for him. I don't know, or maybe he's just going to rest on his laurels. It doesn't look good since he apparently got kicked off his last project, or maybe he left on his own. Who knows? But he did some great stuff, and this is probably not one that gets mentioned as much as the others do because it just didn't catch on with the audience the way Buffy and Angel did. But this is a great film that I think will stand the test of time. It's got kind of an ageless quality to it. I don't see that this is going to seem quaint and out of place 10, 20 years from now, and will hopefully take its place in as one of the great horror movies of the 2000s.
Alan.
So yeah, this movie is tough to grade. When I think of this movie, I mean, what I'm thinking about is this. Okay, I could just give you my rating and go, but this is a 5 that I had to cut down to a 4, and then I had to give it some extra credit back. So if that even makes sense. So in my mind, watching this movie as a horror movie, I mean, this movie is a 5. So there's a couple of things I'm going to take points away with that I'll probably take flack from you and everybody else. But the nudity, get rid of the nudity. Just get rid of it. It's one scene. It's there just for nudity's sake. Get rid of it.
It was there for commentary, Alan. It was for commentary.
I know. Yeah. There's always a reason.
It was part of the theme.
A woman to take her top off. But yeah, I would get rid of the nudity and God, so much cussing. I when I write movies, I never write cussing. People can say that, well, in real life you would cuss. It's like, well, movies aren't real life. It's too much cussing. So I took off a full point for that.
I kind of feel bad that I didn't notice that.
But then I had to give it extra credit because as a plot, and if I could go back to 12-year-old Alan and watch this on TV where they would obviously cut all that stuff out, it would still be just as good of a movie. Now, I will give you the guy screaming at those 9-year-olds in Japan on the screen. Yeah, that is probably the funniest use of cussing I've ever seen. But anyway, I had to go back and give it extra credit because it is such a great movie. So I'm giving it 4.5 rewound VHS tapes out of 5.
Excellent. How about you, Paul?
Well, I actually have my own theory about the incident in '98. 1998 was also when Gus Van Sant did his shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. and like the rest of us, I think basically what happened was they tried to repeat a kill as what they did in 1960.
They tried to use old material.
Yes, and the elder gods were so incensed by this. Then they were so incensed that they desecrated the memory of this 1961 with a piece of shit trying to redo it. That they said, "Fuck this! You're going to have to kill even more people now." So that's my take on it. I love this film. It definitely holds up. I think it's really fun. I do like the message. I love having my expectations subverted. I love when things screw with me like that, and I love what they did with it. I'm a fan of Joss Whedon's dialogue and his just whole shtick, as it were. And hell, Marty is like one of the greatest characters ever. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And so I'd give it I'd say 4 3/4 tapes. I'd like rewind.
Oh, you can't rewind a quarter.
Yes, you can. You can record
No,
this.
that
means
means
that you stop. I no, I think that's fine.
I rewound it. I stopped. I stopped like I missed a little bit of it. I pulled it out a little too early. Oh wait,
okay.
Better than too late.
Hey,
so
look,
anyway,
there are no rules here. You can rewind or not rewind as much as you want. You just have to make sure you pay the fees.
Yeah. So
I
really enjoyed it, and it held up. Which, like I said, I had.
That also makes the math harder, Paul.
you teach math, Alan.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, amazingly, like the bell curve that we've seen, I'm going to give this a 5 because I love this movie so much. I love the tropiness of kids getting killed. I love the stupid, kid getting killed kind of movie, the vibe, and everyone's just dumb and does ridiculous things. The monsters were just beyond. I love stoner humor. I love movies where everybody dies in the end. It was just so many things that I loved. And so, yeah, I'm giving it a full 5.
And you know what that brings us to, Paul? 4.55.
There you go.
Inconceivable.
A number that doesn't exist.
Wow. An imaginary
I feel bad for your math students, Alan.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, that's way off topic. But
this is part of industry math, I guess.
Maybe Bill can do this.
What?
Adding 2 numbers in your head is like a parlor trick to students. They're like, whoa,
absolutely.
How did you do that?
When I do multiplication.
Wait, 13 and 24 is 37. How did you do that in your head?
God, you're like Rain Man, which I think is a compliment.
I was sort of crossing through all the things that I got to on my list. There was one thing, and I think I talk about this a lot when we talk about horror movies. This movie, if you go on IMDb, it's listed as comedy, horror. I would list this as horror I guess if you want to put comedy in there, you can. I hate what I classically consider horror comedy, although I would like to put this in the category of horror and horror comedy. I just wish that all movies that people put in the category of horror comedy had comedy like this, because a lot of movies you put one joke in and all of a sudden you're horror comedy, and then you've also got the dumb movies like something like well, and not necessarily dumb because they're entertaining for their own sake, but
Like
something
scary
like or like Toxic Avenger. That's horror comedy.
Yeah.
But these are not in. Those are not in the same genre to me. I mean, they're just not. They're not both horror comedy movies. And I was surprised that on IMDb, and I don't know if it's alphabetical or what, but to have comedy listed first for this is kind of
Yeah, that seems a little weird.
kind of strange.
I would
I mean,
agree.
yeah, horror comedy. We could do a whole episode just on horror comedy. Everything from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein to American Werewolf in London are both. One's a comedy horror and one's a horror comedy. You know, you're right. There's different ways of looking at these things. The comedy in this, yeah, it doesn't feel to me like it's got a lot of funny bits in it, but the characters
Well, it's also the comedy is away from the horror. I mean, I like that.
That is
I mean,
true.
I'm good with that. I don't like to mix my horror and
yes,
the comedy.
yes, right.
I don't know. I thought the comedy and horror were mixed. Were like shit. When he gets eaten by the merman, it's horrific and funny at the same time.
True.
He's been loving to see it, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And then he gets just brutalized by it. So I mean, I think it's definitely mixed in there.
I mean, that is a joke, and it's a joke that's been set up through the entire
Right.
movie. It's the
Right,
payoff
but I'm
to
saying,
it.
well, which makes it even that much better.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange. And the only way I know to describe that is I liked that scene. I would not have liked that scene if he was saying his line while the merman was eating him. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking?
I see what you're saying.
It's the
In other words,
McDLT. You keep the hot side hot and the cool side cool. That's
oh God, that's an old reference.
You know,
No,
when
I actually do see what you're saying, Alan. It's not like him being devoured. Well, I mean,
You should put that in your next book about filmmaking. If you're making a horror comedy, it's like a BLT.
Yeah.
You got to keep
No, McDLT.
DLT.
Oh, McDLT.
Yeah.
I heard BLT.
No, D.
McDLT.
D as in
McDonald's.
death.
Which
was
Jason
like
Alexander
Star
was the
Wars
one who
packaging
advertised
model.
that, by the way.
Really?
Are you
Yeah,
serious?
you've never.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the one who's dancing down the street singing about it with his sleeves rolled up on his jacket. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I will also say I think the thing, as many jokes as this movie has, I think one of the things that really irks me, especially about a lot of contemporary films, is a lot of writers seem to think that the comedy is just having every character be funny and having every character tell jokes. And to a certain extent, like you have the two main guys in the facility, and they're both kind of telling jokes, but it's also just that is their personality, right? They kind of have that gallows humor. And then Marty is obviously kind of, I mean, he's the jester, so he's going to be telling jokes. But it's not every single character is not a comedian telling, just endlessly riffing, right? So I don't know. I think that's as grating, and I shouldn't say grating, but as niche as Joss Whedon's dialogue can sometimes be. I think that in this case, him and Drew Goddard did a good job of kind of having the right characters deliver that dialogue instead of having every character just endlessly making jokes.
Yeah, not everyone's pithy. It's just a specific one.
So I guess wrap it up.
Yeah. Do you want me
Any
to?
final thoughts? Yeah. You
Oh
want
yeah.
co-host Zach, please? Would
No,
you?
no.
No, please.
Outro. But if people have final thoughts, then
Oh yeah, final thoughts. Anyone?
It's all about the theme.
Oh God.
that should be from now on. Every
what was-
episode
what was
should
the
end
theme
with
again?
call to theme.
Be nice to people or something.
Yeah.
That's might be nice.
I just wanted to point out that Cannibal
Change your underwear.
Holocaust has a average rating of 5.9, and the curve looks a lot like if you took out the 9% of the people who gave it a lowly 1, it would have pretty much the same rating as Cabin in the Woods.
I think Cabin in the
There
Woods
you go.
actually. I was looking at that, and I think it has like a 13% ones.
That's
So,
insane.
yeah.
That's just they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yep.
They should.
Well, I'm going to personally contact everyone who rated it a 1 and send them this podcast, and hopefully they will reevaluate their thinking there.
A Serbian film has a 5.0.
Oh my
Lord.
God.
Anyways,
Alan, we're not covering a Serbian film.
should I?
I don't see why
Our
not.
next film is Sallow.
Oh
boy.
God, that's not even funny.
Oh, I need to see that too. Don't
No, you don't.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for the love of God, no, you don't.
Anyways, yeah. Does anyone have anything else they want to say before we sign off?
Oh.
Well, I was gonna. All right, we broke Paul. I was going to say,
I was just going to make some comment about chocolate and orange marmalade.
No,
but
okay.
No.
Well, Cabin in the Woods ended with the destruction of the entire world, and I think next time we're going to see what happens after the end of the world
Yeah.
when we cover Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Part 3 of the Mad Max saga. And
I do get to see Tina Turner in this one, right?
Yes.
yes. You do. You get to see her, and you get to hear her perform not one but 2 songs.
Ugh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Be a
good.
long week.
It's good.
Is it a music?
Well,
Yes.
no, but there is a great music video for one of her songs.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
and there is also, I believe, who is it? Is it Tupac that had a music video inspired by that
That is
movie?
right.
Which, yeah, we'll talk about when we get to that. But anyways, before then, I think that's it. And so, oh yeah, does anyone want to plug anything? I feel like Bill's the only one who ever does that. So, Bill, do you want to talk about your other 9 podcasts you're on?
No, it's just there's 2 other podcasts, Decades of Horror, the 1970s, and Decades of Horror, the 1980s, which are all part of gruesomemagazine.com. Lots of good, and they have lots of good stuff that I'm not part of, but other podcasts that deal with pretty much every decent horror movie that gets released. And a good source, because you're looking for something to watch, you go on Netflix or Shudder or Prime, and there's so much stuff there. You can't trust the star ratings anymore if they even if they haven't taken them away entirely. So it's a good source to find out what you need to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Night.
See ya.
And cut.
Good night.
All
There,
right.
that'll hold the little bastards for a while.
Hey, thanks for listening to us cover pretty much every scene in The Cabin in the Woods. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we would love to hear your thoughts. Visit us at videostorejunkies.com or hit us up on Twitter at videojunkiespod. And if you enjoyed the episode, leave your own 5-tape review on your favorite podcast platform. And join us on our next stop as we head back towards the wastelands. Bill told us about this place called Bartertown, so we grabbed some stuff out of the basement. Alan said something about camels, and I think Zach and Paul might battle that out in the Thunderdome. Anyway, come back in 2 weeks and see who makes it out alive.
The lambs have passed through the gate. They are come to the killing floor. Get this party started!
I seriously believe something weird is going on.
What is that thing?
We have to stay together. This isn't right. We should split up.
Yeah, good idea. Really?
We gotta get out of here.
Somebody sent those things here to get us.
You're missing the point. They want to see us punished.
I think I can get it to go down.